I can't get that background you guys have, but I'm okay with this if that's fine with you.
Captain Dagman, good morning.
Very good morning, sir. Very good morning.
Rahul, good morning.
I did.
Hi, good morning, चौबे जी. शक्ल भी दिखा दीजिए.
शक्ल दिखाता हूँ, थोड़ी देर में दिखाता हूँ. I will log in with
There's an ad image.
Hi, Anuj, good morning.
Good morning.
शक्ल दिखाता हूँ थोड़ी देर में. इतनी खूबसूरत भी नहीं है. तुम लोगों के सामने मेरी शक्ल का क्या रखा है यार. अभी सुनाओ क्या बोलना है. विनोचा साहब, good morning. Surakia, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Saurabh. How are you?
Very fine, very fine.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. I know it's a holiday weekend and people have made a great effort to be with us this morning. Long weekend has been shortened for you all, just for a half a day session and very interesting session too.
Hi Ali, how are you?
Good, Shraddha Saab. Good, sir, this morning.
Hi, nice to see quite a lot of non-officers. Vijendra Chobe is there. Rao Saab is there, principal officer. So nice to see all of them. Ashok
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all.
Very good morning, sir.
Hi, Saurabh Turakia.
Yeah, hello. Hi.
Hi, morning, Rahul. How are you?
Morning, Vijan.
Hi, thanks.
Bijan, good morning.
Hi, Bijan.
Hi, morning. Morning, Dagman. How are you?
Morning, Bijan. Morning, Bijan.
Good to see you all here.
Oh, yes, same here. And after all the great work that you've done, JNPT, you find time for us. We are honored.
Thank you.
Hi, Arun. Bala.
Oh.
You're muted, Arun.
Hi, Rahul, Ali, nice to see you guys. If not in person, at least on Zoom. Fantastic.
Great, Arun. Great to see you. Still the same. Still the same. 40 years I've not done anything on you.
Yeah,
Good morning.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, I'm looking forward to hearing you guys. So it's great to be on a Maritime Day, sharing space with you guys.
Thank you. How does it look?
Hi, good morning, Ashok. How are you?
Oh, yes. Bijat, Ashok is presently attending a class. He's with the ship management classes going on. He should be joining around noon.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
He's trying to be a ship manager now.
Without the video or the audio.
We're just waiting for another couple of minutes. We need to go live on YouTube. Amitabh Singh is working on it. So the moment we go live on YouTube, I think we will start doing that.
Okay.
Morning, Captain Manocha.
Good morning, Captain Tandon. Good to see you. We should be starting shortly. We're just waiting for the YouTube to go live.
Morning, Rajesh Tandon ji.
Morning, Ali.
Hi, Captain Tandon. How are you?
Good morning, Krish. Look, good to see you.
Yeah,
Long
good.
time.
Yes, it is. It has been at least online.
Hello.
Yeah, we don't even count otherwise nowadays, you know.
Yes.
Morning, Sonali. Anirudh, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
দুটোই ভালো আছে।
Hi, Kanak. Welcome aboard.
That's not it.
मुझे
और कैप्टन डैकमैन
ऑडियो म्यूट करना हो तो कैसे करूं? ऑडियो और वीडियो दोनों म्यूट करना हो कैसे करूं?
With your permission, Mr. Rao, can I start the webinar because
please go ahead. Sir,
we
please.
seem to be online live on YouTube. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 58th National Maritime Day webinar. As you're aware, the topic of the webinar is sustainable shipping beyond COVID-19. I will be the host for the webinar, and before we start the webinar, I would like to draw your attention to some of the do's and don'ts. Your microphones are muted and will continue to remain so for the entire period of the webinar. This is to cut off unnecessary background noise from the audience. For the question and answer session, we would like you to type your question in the chat box and we'll take them up one at a time. Make your questions precise and to the point, and please put only one question at a time. You may also raise your hand and we will unmute you to ask and then answer your question. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy the webinar session. I now hand over the mic to Captain Ali Dagman, who is the moderator and also the master of ceremony. Over to you, Captain Dagman.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to this National Maritime Day celebration, the 58th one. We are honored. We are all honored to have a great team with us this morning. But before we begin the program, we would request the Chairman NMDCC, Mr. Kilimon Rao, to welcome our dignitaries and guests. Before, of course, I put Mr. Rao on the mic, let me give you a very small brief about this gentleman's achievement. He has been a graduate engineer coming out of the Nagarjuna University in the year 1993. After completing his MU Class 1 in 2001, he also got his extra first class in 2017. A colorful career, three careers from the Shipping Corporation of India, the national shipping company, to being engineers on board the MS Tulani, the SR shipping. And then when he hung his boots to be ashore, he started with being a ship surveyor for MS Indian Register of Shipping and American Bureau of Shipping. When he joined the MMD, dedicated service to MMD over the decade or more, and now he has been serving the Kolkata District Mercantile Marine Department as the principal officer. We welcome Mr. Rao to address this August gathering with his welcome speech.
Thank you, Captain Dagman, for the introduction. Thank you. Namaskar. Captain Manoja, Fosma Maritime Academy, Kolkata. Sri Amit Bhatnagar, the Chairman of Institute of Marine Engineers, India, Kolkata branch. And today's speaker, distinguished speakers, Captain R. Bhargava and Sonali Banerjee, Captain S. Krishnamurthy, Captain Sahai, members of Company Master of Mariners, members of the Institute of Marine Engineers, members of Seafarer Engineers, ship owner, ship managers, seafarers, officials of the ports, maritime training institutes, members of the National Maritime Day Celebration Committee, Kolkata, students, my dear friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all. It is my privilege to speak on this occasion of 58th National Maritime Day celebrations. I would like to convey my greetings on behalf of the National Maritime Day Celebration Committee, Kolkata, to all the stakeholders of maritime community and especially seafarers and their families. My sincere apologies on behalf of the National Maritime Day Celebration Committee, Kolkata, to all the members of the maritime community. The committee have planned for a grand National Maritime Day celebrations, but due to nationwide lockdown, the celebrations were cancelled in last year. The committee has also planned for a week-long celebrations this year, but due to upsurge of COVID cases in the country, the committee has decided to curtail the celebrations to this webinar and a wreath-laying ceremony at Navigriha, Kolkata. A famous say, we all know, without shipping, half of the planet would starve and the other half would freeze. And the same has been proved in this COVID pandemic. Though the world has come to stand still, but still shipping was on move. Our fellow seafarers and our maritime community have provided their valuable, seamless services to this world, even at these tough times. Many seafarers were stuck at different destinations, and many seafarers were away from their families beyond their contract period, but they maintained their moral discipline and served for this world even at tough times. Due to nationwide lockdown and restrictions on international travel, many seafarers were jobless and many of them were stuck on board beyond their contractual period. The Directorate General of Shipping has taken as a challenge of these tough times and ensured controlled crew change of Indian seafarers at Indian ports and foreign ports, and also foreign seafarers at Indian ports in coordination with Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of External Affairs, and Civil Aviation Ministry. The COVID pandemic has given unprecedented hardship to many existing seafarers for revalidation of their certificate of competencies and certificate of proficiency, and the students of RISI courses are badly affected in terms of practical training and on-board training slots. India being a trained and qualified manpower supplying nation, definitely this pandemic has hampered the employment opportunities to young dynamic seafarers. But the Directorate General of Shipping has taken the necessary steps and ensured all certificate of competency and certificate of proficiency of all existing seafarers are renewed in compliance with STCW regulations, and ensured practical training sessions are continued with precautions at Maritime Training Institute to get onboard training slots of young dynamic seafarers. The head of 5 UN organizations have called for maritime and air transport workers to be prioritized for COVID-19 vaccination. Given their key role in supporting global trade and mobility, which is essential for sustainable socio-economic recovery of the world. I hope all our seafarers and members of maritime community will get COVID vaccine soon, and I hope world will come back to pre-COVID situation soon. Today, we have 5 eminent speakers of shipping industry. All of them have vast experience in their domain and handle their responsibility in these troubled waters of COVID pandemic. And they have chosen the topics related to the theme of this National Maritime Day, sustainable shipping beyond COVID-19. Definitely, these presentations will help to all of us, especially young upcoming seafarers. Once again, I convey my greetings and best wishes to all participants of this webinar on behalf of the National Maritime Celebration Committee, Kolkata, and I hope all of them will enjoy with this seminar. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Rao sir. Thank you very much for that warm welcome and a warm day too. But as I said, this is a platform where we have the diversities from the shipping industry, and the role of the administration, above all, has been the guiding lighthouse. And Mr. Rao, we appreciate all the help that was extended during and being extended during this COVID period. But to begin the celebration, so we will bring in a small video clip to make people aware of why do we celebrate the National Maritime Day? How did it come into its existence? We as seafarers must enjoy this video clip and remind us from where we begin our celebrations. Could I request Captain Minocha to screen the video? Thank you, sir.
हेलो दोस्तों, 5 अप्रैल को भारत का राष्ट्रीय समुद्री दिवस नेशनल मैरीटाइम डे मनाया जाता है। क्या आप जानते हैं ये इसी दिन क्यों मनाया जाता है? इस दिन सन 1919 में भारतीय नेविगेशन का इतिहास बना था, जब सिंधिया स्टीम नेविगेशन कंपनी लिमिटेड के शिप एसएस लॉयल्टी, जो किसी भारतीय स्वामित्व वाली कंपनी का पहला जहाज था, ने यूके की यात्रा की थी। यह भारतीय नौवहन इतिहास के लिए एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम था, क्योंकि उस समय समुद्री मार्ग अंग्रेजों द्वारा नियंत्रित किए जाते थे। भारतीय उद्यमियों की अपरिहार्य भावना को सलाम करते हुए भारतीय प्रबंधन के पूर्ण स्वामित्व वाले इस ऐतिहासिक दिन और घटना को याद करते हुए भारतीय राष्ट्रीय समुद्री दिवस पहली बार 5 अप्रैल 1964 को मनाया गया था। आइए थोड़ा और इतिहास में जाते हैं इसके बारे में और जानने के लिए। शिप एसएस लॉयल्टी का पूर्व नाम आरएमएस एम्प्रेस ऑफ इंडिया था, जो कि कैनेडियन पैसिफिक स्टीमशिप कंपनी के स्वामित्व वाला शिप था। इस 5,905 टन के जहाज की लंबाई 455.6 फीट थी और उसकी बीम थी 51.2 फीट। ट्विन प्रोपेलर और 16 नॉट्स की औसत गति वाले इस जहाज को 770 पैसेंजर्स के लिए डिज़ाइन किया गया था। आरएमएस एम्प्रेस ऑफ इंडिया ने 8 फरवरी 1891 को सुएज से हांगकांग और वैंकूवर के लिए अपने पहले दौरे पर रवानगी की और इसका कॉल साइन था माइक पापा इंडिया। इस जहाज़ को 19 दिसंबर 1914 को बड़ौदा के गायकवाड़, जिन्हें ग्वालियर के महाराजा के नाम से भी जाना जाता है, को बेचा गया था, जिन्होंने इसे प्रथम विश्व युद्ध में भारतीय सैनिकों के लिए एक हॉस्पिटल शिप के रूप में इस्तेमाल किया था। 19 जनवरी 1915 को इस जहाज का नाम बदलकर लॉयल्टी कर दिया गया। मार्च 1919 में इसे बॉम्बे में द सिंधिया स्टीम नेविगेशन कंपनी लिमिटेड को बेच दिया गया और फरवरी 1923 में जहाज को बॉम्बे में स्क्रैप करने के लिए बेच दिया गया था। सिंधिया स्टीम नेविगेशन कंपनी सबसे पुरानी भारतीय शिपिंग कंपनियों में से एक थी। प्रथम विश्व युद्ध की समाप्ति के बाद यह कंपनी मिस्टर वालचंद हीराचंद द्वारा मिस्टर नरोत्तम मोरारजी, मिस्टर किलाचंद देवचंद और मिस्टर लल्लू भाई सामलदास के साथ 1919 में ज्वाइंट वेंचर में स्थापित की गई। यह बड़े पैमाने पर भारतीय स्वामित्व वाली पहली शिपिंग कंपनी थी, जिसका ब्रिटिश राज में अपना मर्केंटाइल फ्लीट था और एसएस लॉयल्टी के साथ इस कंपनी ने अपनी पहली भारत यूरोप सेवा शुरू की। यह कंपनी सही मायनों में पहली भारतीय स्वदेशी शिपिंग कंपनी थी। 1923 में कंपनी ने पी&ओ और ब्रिटिश इंडिया के साथ 10 साल के समझौते पर हस्ताक्षर किए, जिसने सिंधिया को केवल तटीय व्यापार तक सीमित कर दिया, लेकिन कंपनी को लगातार विस्तार करने की अनुमति दी गई। कंपनी द्वारा 1927 में SS जलबाला को लॉन्च किया गया, जो कि कंपनी के आदेश द्वारा निर्मित पहला कार्गो स्टीमर था। जलबाला बाद में द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध में 1943 में U-532 द्वारा टॉर्पीडो कर दिया गया और डूब गया। 1953 तक कंपनी ने 21% भारतीय तटीय यातायात विस्तारित कर लिया था। 1951 में सिंधिया स्टीम नेविगेशन कंपनी 12 अन्य भारतीय शिपिंग कंपनियों की मदद से इंडियन कोस्टल कॉन्फ्रेंस की स्थापना में शामिल थी, जिसे सितंबर 1958 में रजिस्टर्ड किया गया था। मुंबई में आधारित इसकी भूमिका कोस्टल शिपिंग के विकास, मर्चेंट शिपिंग और मैरीटाइम लेबर कन्वेंशन से संबंधित मामलों पर सरकार के समक्ष प्रतिनिधित्व करने के लिए था। मिस्टर वालचंद वास्तव में दूरदर्शी व्यक्ति थे। उन्होंने यह भी माना कि भारत में एक शिपयार्ड के लिए मजबूत आवश्यकता थी और उन्होंने 1940 में विशाखापट्टनम में सिंधिया शिपयार्ड नाम से काम शुरू किया, जिसे बाद में हिंदुस्तान शिपयार्ड लिमिटेड का नाम दिया गया। 8000 टन वजनी इसका पहला जहाज जलूशा आज़ादी के तुरंत बाद 1948 में जवाहरलाल नेहरू द्वारा लॉन्च किया गया था। 1947 में भारतीय स्वतंत्रता के बाद सिंधिया स्टीम नेविगेशन कंपनी ने सरकार के समर्थन से अमेरिकी और ब्रिटेन के यात्री और कार्गो ट्रेड्स में प्रवेश किया और बाद में दुनिया भर में व्यापार के लिए विस्तार किया। सरकार ने कंपनी का समर्थन जारी रखा और 1958 में भारतीय शिपिंग उद्योग द्वारा की गई प्रगति को चिन्हित करते हुए राष्ट्रीय शिपिंग बोर्ड का गठन किया गया। भारतीय शिपिंग ने तब से एक उल्लेखनीय प्रगति देखी है और आज हम भारतीय नाविकों और भारतीय शिपिंग द्वारा दुनिया भर में की गई उपलब्धियों को देख सकते हैं। आज दुनिया भर में लगभग 2 लाख भारतीय सीफेयरर्स समुद्री सेवा प्रदान कर रहे हैं। 11.5 मिलियन टन डेडवेट के साथ भारतीय शिपिंग उद्योग पूरे विश्व व्यापार का लगभग 8% का हिस्सा है, जिसमें 12 प्रमुख बंदरगाह, 184 अन्य बंदरगाह, 9 शिपयार्ड और लगभग 7,500 किलोमीटर तटीय क्षेत्र है। That's all to brief you all. Amplus saluting Indian seafarers on this National Maritime Day. Stay tuned for more from Amplus. Bye.
Thank you, Captain Manoj, for the history of National Maritime Day celebration. It was very nostalgic for me because Senior Steam Navigation is where I started my sailing with, and feel proud to be attached with India till date and be part of National Maritime Day celebrations one after another. Lovely video, and of course, it's been a great effort of our chairman to gather this video for the introduction of National Maritime Day. Thank you, Rao sir. We will now begin the program as per the schedule. We begin with a big thank you to the Mercantile Marine Department of Kolkata District that have been brave in these times to venture for the celebrations. Of course, as Mr. Rao said, we will try to make up as we progress. COVID-19 brought halt globally industries, work, social gatherings, anything and everything that you could think of. But shipping never stopped. The shipping never stopped, as Mr. Rao highlighted. Ships moved, seafarers moved, because if they had stopped, the world would have stopped. Thank you, seafarers that are with us this morning. A big hand to all of you. And let's begin on a very happy note to face the choppy seas. It was choppy during the COVID times, and it's still, no doubt about it. And that is why we have speakers from all over the industry to make us feel comfortable during this COVID times. The worries are there, but I'm sure the learned speakers will brief us and gather our spirits and confidence to face the COVID-19. Our first speaker for the day today is Captain Rahul Bhargav, the Chief Operating Officer of SR Shipping Limited, Mumbai. He happens to start his career as a cadet, training cadet from TS Agenda 77-78 batch. And when he went up to the Masters in Great Eastern, where after the training ship, he sailed, he also enjoyed the international shipping, and he worked to gather his knowledge of ship operations in Barber ship management, where he commanded. He gave up his sailing in 1994, but could not stay away from shipping. And he took up the commercial shipping at the SAR Steel Limited, Great Eastern Shipping, Precious Shipping, Bangkok, JM Baxi, JSW Steel are some of the platforms where he gathered his wisdom of today where he is. He has been at the ship owner's desk, he's headed the broker's desk and the charter's desk. In his present capacity at SR Shipping, he wears multiple hats of being ship owner, charterer, and ship operator. We are happy to have Captain Rahul Bhargav here, who is a regular speaker at Cold Strands, logistic conferences, and educational seminars arranged by Indian Register of Shipping. Well, Captain Bhargav, you have in company Senior Principal Surveyor, Mr. Amit Bhatnagar from IRS, to be with you in this platform. Captain Bhargav is also a commercial committee, is the commercial committee of INSA, a member of General Council at NIMIS. Captain Rahul teaches chartering at Narottam Moraji Institute, Navi Mumbai, on voluntary basis. His belief is 43 years in shipping to the next generation. Thank you for being with us, Captain Rahul Bhargav. We will now ask you to pray. We can look up to you today, as along with we in the audience. Please, sir.
Thank you, Captain Ali, and thank you, Mr. Rao, for the encouraging words for the shipping fraternity. It's a pleasure to be here and speaking on this auspicious occasion. Give me a second while I share my screen. Can you confirm you can see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you once again for inviting me for this particular session. Sustainability, yes, sustainable shipping will always be sustained. It is one of the oldest, cheapest mode of transportation, and no doubt it is going to be there post-COVID or any COVID, anything comes in. We'll be there. Shipping will be there.
Bhargav, may I interject for a minute, please?
Sure.
We really cannot see a PowerPoint presentation. All we see is the page where you have the downloads. We have not been able to see a PowerPoint.
PPT is not yet on the screen.
Not on?
Not
No.
on the screen, not yet.
It shows that we are sharing.
You may open the PPT first and then share it. You will be able to do it comfortably.
Okay, let me try one more time.
You could stop sharing, sir, and then open the PPT and then start sharing.
Trying that. Let me see what I can do.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Now you can see?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you are on the screen, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, right. So shipping industry had to navigate through choppy waters in 2020. Every year there are few defining moments, but the year gone by had so many world-changing developments. Pandemic and geopolitical situations had marked the year of 2020 and affected the world trade. The year began with killing of Iranian general by US drone, led to days of terrifying tension. China ruffling feathers with US, Australia, Taiwan, and India. Warlike situations were developing in South China Sea. On 11th March 20, WHO declared coronavirus a pandemic. Shutter rolls down across the globe. Life came to absolutely halt. No flights, empty streets, and cruise ships lying lifeless in open seas. People were dying in quarantine hospital, leading to severe impact on global markets and economic growth. On the 20th April 20, crude oil traded in negative territory for the first time in the history, bringing heavy losses to the crude oil traders. Cruise liners have been the worst sufferer due to quarantine and travel restrictions. Dry cargo market suffered the worst in Q2 of 20, and thereafter it's recovering at a slow pace. Tanker market enjoyed extraordinary situation due to decline in petroleum consumption. The crude prices slashed. The refinery kept buying cheap oil and floated on ships. Similarly, the products were floated on ships, leading to high demand in tanker market. Although the Q1 of 2021 has a different story to speak. Tanker market have suffered badly. VLCCs have been trading in negative earnings since January, whereas the dry cargo has gained healthy levels. Now, the big question is, will shipping sustain from its present level? And that's the topic today. Well, there will be few events to monitor, like China relation with US, Taiwan, Australia, Japan, and India, effect of vaccine on second wave of pandemic, supply and demand of the ships, trade growth, and world GDP. Well, the relations between China and US, we have very little to do. We have to just wait and watch. Pandemic, the only thing that can be done is to vaccinate people, which is being happening. But to further look into the macro overview, we can look at the GDP and the growth and the supply and demand of the ships, which will tell us how sustainable the shipping is going to be in future. So let's look at some macro overviews. Global GDP is now projected to be 5.5% for 2021. China is at 8.1%, and India, won't believe it, it's a whooping 11.5%. It's its IMF predictions. And the overall Asian forecast is 8.3%. If we look at the manufacturing purchase manager index, all the countries, whether you consider the big economies of US, Japan, Eurozone, China, they are on the uprise. Or you consider the Asian, Southeast Asian countries, it is also on much higher level. So the good news is that manufacturing is up on the uprise. If the manufacturing is up, the trade is up. If the trade is up, the shipping is up. Now, to know more into the shipping side, how the ship sustainability is going to be, we have to understand two things. One is the trade patterns, the trade, and the supply and demand of the ships. So let's look at the trades of the dry cargo. primarily the major trades that we look into dry cargoes are iron ore. If you look at the iron ore, the volumes are projected to go. If you see the red tall bars, this is the 2021 predictions for the iron ore movement. Vale in Brazil, one of the biggest supplier of iron ore, has gone in for new mines. Few miners in Australia are increasing the capacity. So definitely the iron ore is on the uprise, which is just moving up. So we look into that iron ore is on a higher note. Another commodity is the bauxite. Now, traditionally, the China was buying bauxite from Indonesia and India. In recent past, because of the ban in Indonesian bauxite, the new destination is Guinea. They are buying a lot of bauxite from Guinea. With the increase of trade in Guinea, the ton miles have gone up. So to carry a similar volume of cargo from Indonesia to China, now it's coming from Guinea. So the amount of ships, the requirement has gone up. If we look into the trade patterns here, if you look at the Guinea export, it is exponentially going up. And if I look into the China imports, the country-wise, the red targets out here are all the China import of bauxite from Guinea. The reason with all this is that now the ton miles will go up, employment of ships will go up due to this. If I look into the coal as a commodity, you see coal has declined in 2020 and has rebound in Q3. If you see here, this is 20, the blue is the 20 trade. So it has come down and it has rebound from Q3, it's going up. And it is expected that it will continue to go further. Now, China has banned Australian coal and it is buying from South Africa and US. So the resultant again, one more, it is the ton miles goes up. Carry the similar quantity of cargo, you will require more number of ships. If you are bringing the coal instead of Australia, you're bringing it from South Africa or US. Grain and soybean meal, rapeseed meals, these are another commodities which are moved. Again, China with its population is one of the biggest consumer of these products. Here again, the US and Brazil has declared very high production for grains. Brazil is estimating soya product of 133 million tons this year. And most of the cargo of that will be sold to China. So we expect more ships to be engaged in this particular trade, and increase of ton miles is again expected. Again, conventionally, a lot of cargo was coming from India. The rapeseed meal and soybean meal has temporized for a while, and all it's going to come from South America and US Gulf. If you look at the same soya, corn, and wheat exports from US Gulf and Pacific Northwest, that is your Vancouver side. If I look from the US Gulf, this yellow portions that you see is for the first 3 months. These slides are, by the way, made up to the 20th of March. So if you look at these yellow figure, it is surpassing the old limits. And in fact, it is surpassing the 5-year average, the dotted line. So even for the 5-year average, we have started the year with much higher volume. Same way goes for the Pacific Northwest, where you see the yellow bars going up, which is extremely higher as compared to the 5-year average. So there's a lot of trade movement of grains and soybean and corn this particular year as compared to the previous years, or even as compared to the 5-year average that we look at. Where we cannot talk dry market without talking about the steel. The steel consumes almost 60% of the dry trade is for the steel trade, whether it's bringing iron ore, bringing coking coal, bringing limestone, or export of finished product. So 60% of dry cargo is actually controlled by steel mills. Construction activities have restarted, especially in Asian countries. It's expected that the construction will rise by 4.1%. World steel production is in last 2 months is up almost 6.8%, where China is about 13.1%. So if you look at the trades volumes, the growth has been high, and the Supramax, the Ultramaxes, they are the ones which carry maximum steel products. So if you look at the steel production versus the time charter rate of Supras and Ultra, you will find they're almost in tandem. If the production goes up, the freight rates are going up equally. If the steel production goes up, so the scrap also goes up. If you see today, the scrap is also trading at $500 a ton, which is conventionally high. Cement is expected to be up by 15% with the growth in Africa, Indian subcontinent, and Middle East. Non-ferrous metal, again, are expected. Battery market is growing leaps and bounds. Non-ferrous ore, which is set to grow. Nickel ore banned again from Indonesia. China is buying it from Polynesian islands, South Pacific islands, and which is again increasing the ton mile. So overall, if there is a ban from Indonesia, a lot of product is going to come in from different places. So if I look at the Capesize fundamentals, on the Cape-size vessels, which basically carry bulk of raw material for power and steel industry, the ton mile for 2021 is much higher than 2020. If you look at the green towers, these are the 2021, whereas the dark blue are the 2020. The fleet growth is on a decline, which we will see in further slides. So with the trade for Cape size going up, fleet size coming down, if you look at the graphs out here, in last year, 2020, the average was $13,000 per day. In 2021, in the first 2-3 months, the charter rates have gone up to over $17,000 per day. This is a direct correlation of trade up and the fleet growth in negative. We look into the sub Cape size, which are basically Panamax and Supras. Again, sub Cape size vessels, they are primarily carrying agri products, finished steel, project cargoes, and minor construction materials to riverine ports. Are also showing a strong demand. The demand is in the green, it's going up. And likewise, this fleet size is coming down. If the impact is the Panamax rates have shot up from 9,000, it's gone up to 18,000, and so as the Baltic Supras index has gone up, the rates have gone up about $16,000. So there is a phenomenal increase in dry bulk in last 2-3 months. So if I summarize the seaborne trade commodity-wise, if I look at the iron ore, coal, grain, fertilizer, construction activity, and others, the increase is 4.3%. So seaborne trade, as compared to 2020, which was negative 1.1%, is positive 4.3%, and predictions for 22 is 2.7%. So the good news is that we have moved up in our consumptions. So the trade is there higher as compared to the previous year. Having seen the demand side, now let's look at the supply side, how it fares. So we will get into the fleet size segment wise to see how it is progressing. The Cape size ships. Cape size ships, there are about 1,856 ships, of which only 99 are in order on order book, which is 5% of the existing fleet. If we look at over 20 years, this is to 2000 and beyond, we look at these, there are about 40 ships which are more than 20 years old. And if I look at the 15 plus year ships, this is this section from 2005 to 6, there are about 150 ships. So these vessels will shortly head to the scrapyard, putting a scrubber or ballast water management system may not be commercially viable on a ship over 15 years. Thus, there is going to be a decline in fleet. So if you look at it, the number of ships that's going to decline is there, and how many ship tonnage wise it will decline. So we see a decline in the net Cape-size vessel floating in the water. Similarly, on the Panamax, the order book is of 163 vessels, which is about 6% of the fleet. And if I look at over 20 years, there are 275 ships over 20 years of age. And if I look at 15 plus is this segment, which is about 450 ships. So 450 ships plus over 250 ships is ready to be scrapped. And considering the high scrap market, we look at many ships heading into the scrapyard. Supramax, similar status applies here. This is a 5% of fleet as an existing, and there are over 300 ships over 20-year-old, and there are another 400 ships which are about 15-year-old. So even if I consider this amount of ships going out, that is 300 plus maybe few of the 18 plus, we are short of almost 500 ships, and we are replacing with only 206 ships. So number-wise, there is complete decline on the number-wise and on the tonnage. And the last of the sections is the handy size, which is the one of the worst of the lot. There's only 3% ships which are on order. So there's only just 3%. And over 550 ships are over 20-year-old. If you look at this tall building, it's the 550 ships, 550 ships which are on older. And also, if I look at over 15 years, this section, there are 400 ships. So there's a 550 ships out here and 400 ships here, which are in not a very great situation. And we are got only 120 ships on 22 ships on order. So there is a huge decline in handy size, which we consider as 10 to 40,000 tonners. There's a complete decline coming out here. So again, if I summarize the fleet growth, if I look at the fleet growth, there is a decline in the fleet growth from, from a year of this R is troubling. From a decline of, from 2020, the fleet growth was 3.6%, which in 2021, we are expecting 3.1%. And in 2022 is 1.6%. Okay, 2022, there are more ships will be ordered in the coming months. So this will go up, but there is definitely only 3.1% increase. Although the increase could be 4.3%, but we are allowing it for the scrubber fitting, layup for the scrubber fitting and ballast water. So the net resultant fleet available for trade is going to be 3% increase. So that is the status on our availability of ships. So now, if we have seen now the commodity side, we have seen the supply side of the ship, but no sense can be made unless we superimpose the two to see how the net result is. So on the Cape size, we again do it on the two sections, basically, Capes and sub-Capes. If I look at the Cape size ships, utilization index, if the trade is the blue line, which is going at 3.9%, and because of the increase in ton mile, it is going at 5.5%, whereas the ship net fleet growth is 3.8%. So if I do the gap analysis, if you see here, it's from 5.5% to 3.8%. Here is a gap which we don't have ships. Resultant, definitely, we are looking at a little better market. Same thing is on the sub-Cape size. The seaborne demand for 2021 is 4.6%. Required deadweight is 5%. Availability of fleet growth is 2.6. 3.7 sub layup for ballast water and scrubber is net is 2.6%. So if I look at here at the net, the red line is the net fleet growth, and the blue line is the trade. So there is a gap out here. The trade is higher, and as compared to the fleet availability. So again, a positive news over here. that we require more ships. And if we don't have more ships, definitely the freight market will be higher. So just a few final thoughts. Iron ore and coal is supposed to go up. Guinea bauxite export is expected to remain firm. Grains from East Coast, South America, and US Gulf will increase the demand. Increase in coal and iron ore is main thing that we are looking at. Construction activities in Asian countries is on the rise, which will increase the movement of steel product, cement, aggregates, logs, and forestry product. Net fleet growth is at the minimum of the years at 3.1%. The trade growth is at 4.3%. So there is going to be a gap. So we foresight better markets in the dry sector. However, there are always a risk factor. If everybody starts increasing the speed, right now most of us are running on eco speed. If we start increasing our speed, if there is a lesser wait time and congestion in the port decreases, then the number of ships available will significantly increase. If there is a slowdown in China, or if there is a deterioration in relation between China and US, this could upset the trade. And the last of the least is the second or the third wave of COVID-19. We are already facing the second wave now. And if we are able to control it, fine. If we are not able to control and the world goes into a lockdown again, then things would change drastically. Otherwise, shipping is there to sustain and it will be sustainable. I see the dry market is going to be good going from now onwards. And that's all my thoughts. Thank you very much for the time. And I thank Clarksons and BRS for providing me all the details for today's presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Captain Ali.
Thank you, Captain Bhargav. You began with the choppy seas, but it looks all smooth hereafter. A very statistical presentation, well highlighting the trade growth, the industrial growth. The challenges, of course, will always be there. But you people being in the helm of affairs, I'm sure the dry bulk market, the dry cargo market will look up. And that would mean that with the COVID around us, we will still be growing. And all that we need to do is just be patient and follow the graphs that you have presented very well. The trades have to come up, as you showed. The challenges of supply for the ships will come up. All is with just the hope that post-COVID-19, we would be sustaining shipping and sustaining the planet too. Thank you once again, Captain Bhargav, for the lovely presentation with all the detailed information that you could gather for us.
Thank you, Ali.
It's time now for our next learned speaker. It's no other but Sonali Banerjee. Welcome on board, Sonali, because we are honored to have a lady on board with us this morning who is I would say, the one and only that started bringing in the set of ladies into the shipping. Sonali was the pass out from DNT, the erstwhile Directorate of Marine Engineering Training in 1999 batch. She's the first lady to formally undertake a maritime training and become India's first lady marine engineer. The first lady in India to be awarded a maritime certificate of competency license to sail. I remember Mr. Ajay Chatterjee was handing over you the COC, Sonali. You make us proud. She sailed on oil tankers and bulk carriers on board the mobile shipping companies and fleet management ships till she cleared her Ministry of Transport Class 1 certificate of competency. She was the first lady in the history of Indian mercantile marine to be awarded with the highest sailing license of the chief engineer. She moved ashore thereafter served as a marine superintendent with MSc Ship Management India, served as a technical manager with Samson Maritime, managing the diving support vessels and the SPMs of Reliance. Currently, she is serving as a senior surveyor to the Indian Register of Shipping. She is an advocate of gender equality and diversity, co-founder of the Federation of Global Maritime Community, member of VISTA, Women International Shipping and Trading Association. So it's so befitting to have Sonali with us this morning on United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 5, the gender equality. I'm sure Sonali will do a lot of justice to this topic. The 173 countries that adopted the UN Sustainable Development Goals in the year 2015. We have now Sonali with us to highlight one very special one, and no better than Sonali. Welcome on board, Sonali. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Captain Dagmar. Am I audible, loud and clear?
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would not be having a presentation today as such, but I would be generally speaking about how we perceive the SDG number 5. May I request others to put themselves on mute so that there is no background noise. Thank you so much. Okay, good morning, gentlemen. And I'm not too sure if we have any other ladies around to greet. To begin with, I would like to thank the NMDC Kolkata chapter for giving me this opportunity to be a speaker on this prestigious platform during the National Maritime Week. What do we understand when we say sustainability? Sustainability, if we have to define it in very simple words, is behaving responsibly enough in meeting our own needs, such that we do not impose a threat or endanger the prospects of future generations to meet their own needs. In addition to natural resources, we also need social and economic resources. And most importantly, sustainability is not just environmentalism. So there may be two ways of looking at the issue. Either we condition the planet that sustainability is so well absorbed within the ecosystem that it promotes humanity and all various dimensions with the existence of human beings. Or the other way around is how we condition the human mind to perceive that as long as we have sustainable planet mechanism in place, the same would be conducive to the existence of humanity. So when it comes to sustainable shipping, the prime focus currently has been on SDG number 13, which talks about the climate change, and SDG number 14, that is life below water. However, when we see shipping industry holistically, we don't find much of a mention of the other SDGs, that is, namely we can say number 12, that is responsible consumption and production. This SDG number 8, that is decent work and economic growth. SDG number 1, 2, and 3, which talks about no poverty, zero hunger, good health, and well-being. And if so, it is genuinely targeting towards a sustainable development. Can these exist in isolation? The answer is best known to all of us. That is what we understand inclusion is all about. We have to have a holistic mechanism so that when we progress, when we develop, everything falls in place. But one SDG that the IMO has taken up very forcefully, and they have been very aggressively advocating about that is the SDG number 5, gender equality. So firstly, I would be addressing the gender equality, and later, depending on whether the time permits, I shall be briefly touching upon how sustainability model is not complete unless the other SDGs are viewed in totality. The IMO's gender program was initiated in the year 1988. And in India, this trend started, as Captain Dagmar had correctly stated. That was when I joined the MERI Training Institute in the year 1995 and passed out in the year 1999. We understand a lot has been done towards the induction of women in the maritime training institutes, which opened their doors to women However, very little has been achieved towards placing women seafarers on board cargo ships. The statistics that we have from the IMO sites is today women represent only 2% of the world's 1.2 million seafarers, and 94% of these small percentage are working in the cruise industry. So that kind of makes it only 6% of the total women seafarers percentage that is working in the cargo ships industry. Need was felt for the global agendas of achieving equality and the other UN SDGs. First thing is, women tend to bring different perspectives to table, without which we know that half of the world's issues are unaddressed. And secondly, having women on board ships would give a more natural, cohabitative environment for everybody. While most companies incorporate gender equality in their procedures and manuals, when it comes to employing women on board, most of them have an unwritten, unset policy of not hiring women. It's just not walking the talk, but merely lip service. Companies even today are looking at excuses, reasons to, how they may sideline women when it comes to offering them a job. The possible reasons what we found out as stated by companies for not hiring women seafarers was, first, there is a lot of additional responsibility to company, which they wish to avoid. I mean, it's best avoided. They feel concerned to the safety of the women seafarer. In the times when so much regulatory mechanism is there pertaining to the safety of ship, the environment, and the personnel on board, this is definitely not a concern. If we have the ISM, MLC, ISPS, and other applicable conventions are in place, ships would be a better, safer place, not just for women, but for all crew members in general. Another issue that generally keeps cropping when it comes to employing women on board is that, women start getting linked up with various people on board. It's a bitter truth prevailing in all industry and not just to maritime. And this plays adversely in the mind of women seafarers. As 24/7, she has to find her place in an all-male setup. I mean, when she's the only woman on board and she has to interact, she has to bond with them, the rest of the people who are all male, chances are that she may be closer to some and she may not find her equally close to everybody. But that need not be viewed and she may not be judged for that. And there is this constant pressure on women to be impeccably virtuous. I mean, how we look at goddesses. She cannot have any flaws. Men and women have a biology to deal with, and prolonged period of workplace association may lead to special bonding, but that's not typical to maritime and women seafarers only. We have these issues, all around the industry in various sectors, be it IT, be it medicine, and across all sectors. Just as because the numbers are low in the maritime, too much focus gets drawn to women and their links up. But can anyone in any sector do anything about this? Because that's how men and women are naturally programmed to. Rather than judging them, it's important if both men and women are sensitized to maintain workplace discipline, and anything beyond the workplace is actually nobody's business. So let us stop judging women on these grounds. Everybody has a personal life to lead, and let us not brand them, let us not judge them, let us not make life miserable for them. They already have enough to do. Historically, in our own society, women have always had an equal status and been treated equally with very high respect. However, over a period of time, these values started eroding. With the innumerous invasions, the place of women in the society got degraded due to the oppression and suppression as against muscle power. Pseudo-macho look image took over, and the rules were devised in the favor of men, which led to a patriarchal society. Today, we understand that there is, whosoever is in position of power, they are the ones who define what is right, what is wrong. And there is no absolute yardstick to it. Coming to how shipping today's shipping is no longer about bronze anymore, but it is also about brains. We no longer sail on ships with coal-fired boilers. Technological advancement has made shipping not just a story of daredevilry and muscle power-based game. For generations, women of our nation, particularly if you have to look at the women of the rural area, this is how we have to say that women are conditioned to face adverse situation. We know women in rural areas have been known to work in very adverse conditions. They brave natural calamities. That is, if we talk about the risk associated with ships, they work in extreme conditions of heat and cold. In farmlands, operate tractors. They operate gensets. They also maintain them with practically no training. This I'm talking about rural women. So just imagine if we could tap this potential. And train them and educate them, they can definitely be an asset to our industry also. It is just about acknowledging that and giving them the right launching platform. It does not require rocket science, but trained and organized common sense to serve on board ships, which women have aplenty. Another aspect I would like to touch upon here is the way the companies deal with incident reporting. In the event of an incident being reported from the vessel to the company takes corrective actions. But they often identify those involved as being troublemakers and tend not to rehire them in the future. Particularly if in such an incident, if a lady is involved, the whole story goes in the fleet and it is exchanged with the other companies, and which is not the case if a male is involved in such an incident. So how does an individual deal with this? The industry has to answer. Should it go unreported and get swept under the carpet? And if at all the company deals with it, maintaining confidentiality becomes crucial, more so if a lady is involved in such case, because she tends to get judged and criticized for such. Incentives may be thought of by the administration, and the companies may be rewarded those who intend to employ women seafarers on board. And whatever I have stated so far, that is not intended to generate a battle of the sexes. I am a daughter to my father. I am a sister to a brother, a wife, and a mother to a son. So, and we understand that these men are an integral part of our lives. We would never want an unfair paradigm shift such that at some point men would have to revolt the way we are doing. There are so many mechanisms in place that they feel that there is already a paradigm shift, and sometimes these are not very fairly treated. We know that there are times when even men are falsely implicated. So we want things to be devised in such a way that we have a balance and there is a conducive environment for both the genders. I'm talking of only two genders, not the transgenders and the LGBTQs. We as a society need to have an inclusive model wherein men and women can coexist peacefully with their dignity intact and without any further polarization. I'd like to categorically mention that the shipping fraternity has contributed significantly and immensely towards empowering women in the Indian maritime sector. We have come a long way since I joined the ships in the year 1999, but still a lot more needs to be done for this. Some pertinent issues which I also feel concerns employers is the aspect that how do they have to deal with sexual harassment at workplace that is on board the ships. Today we have quite a few organizations which are working towards the welfare of the women seafarer. However, if we look at the way the policies are proposed, sometimes it may act as a deterrent to hiring more women on board. It is very important that we are able to provide a gender diverse and safe work environment for all genders. A lot has been spoken about gender equality. A lot of seminars have been held, which also includes the IMO declaring the year 2019 as a year of empowering women in the maritime sector. But when it comes to ground realities, very little has actually moved. Too much has been said about diversity, sensitization, and so on and so forth. But what I personally feel is we don't have any implementation plan in place as to how the same can be achieved. We are not really trying to put any measurables to it, no key indicators as to how year after year we can progress and have a certain percentage of women seafaring folks on board our ships. baby steps that we would reach, how to reach a gender diverse shipboard. Can the maritime administrations look at rewarding those corporates or managers? And I'm only saying rewarding. I'm not talking of a quota system or a reservation or anything. Some rewarding mechanism who keep their vision in line with that of the gender equality, not just in their manuals, but also by virtue of having some number of women as part of the shipboard workforce. Lastly, I would also like to mention that there is a lot of pretense. People don't want to talk about things that would generally sound very controversial, and these things generally don't get discussed or addressed. And there is a lot of pretense that all is hunky-dory. We sensitize, we talk about sensitization and diversity. Unless we have a mechanism that how we are going to achieve them, it is, very difficult to move in any direction. Coming to the SDGs, which aim to bring to the forefront about social and economic resources, SDG number 13 deals with climate change. Of course, there are ambitious goals around of achieving the carbon reduction by 40% by the year 2030. This also implies alternate fuels, solar-powered ships, which in turn indicates a redundancy of the existing fleet. Now, if we have to see, is this in line with the UN SDG number 12, which talks about responsible consumption and production? Ships which still have a good percentage of their actual life existing, is there really a need to take them off and get them replaced by a new fleet? And in order to be able to generate low carbon footprint ships, there is also a lot of huge capex that is going to be involved in this. Any thoughts on how and from where this would be coming from? Any mechanism to be able to build these kind of ships so very aggressively to meet the 2030 targets? How much carbon footprints additionally we would be generating in the process? We are already thinking of laying those ships redundant and having low carbon footprint ships. So would there not be additional carbons generated in the process of construction of those ships? Also, in the process of achieving this, we are likely to land up with a lot of maritime resource wastage. Ships which would have to be made redundant before their full life cycle. We can also closer here, we have a look at our own cruise industry, which is in an utterly dilapidated state. The dream cruise ships land up in scrapyards due to poor financial management and otherwise too. We have lessons to learn from there. Finally, I come to the SDG number 1, 2, 3, and 8, which aims to eradicate poverty, hunger, and economic growth. Unless we have a focus and targets on being able to generate more employment in the maritime sector, it is a question, how do we economically empower our people? New technology would mean new skill set development. What would happen to the existing huge workforce that we already have? India is one of the largest seafaring nations. Do we have a vision to make them future ready? Also, with each passing day, we see that there is more and more reduction in the safe manning document. And this is particularly happening more so in the engineering department, making the employability of marine engineers all the more difficult. Of course, this keeps happening because the influencing nations in maritime are moving out of seafaring as a career. And hence, it is not so much of a concern to them. How we formulate to keep this kind of workforce meaningfully engaged remains to be answered. This is not just India, rather the whole world is reeling under the pressure of unemployment. So how to balance technology and economic development to eradicate poverty and hunger is something I leave to the floor. Finally, before I conclude, I would only like to say that companies which have aligned themselves with the vision of the development of their ecosystem have seen a sustained growth and at times astronomical too. Because when you invest in the development of the ecosystem, The ecosystem and all associated forces also align itself to help in your growth. That is from me. That is all that I would like to say on today for the IMO SDGs. And thank you so much, sirs, for giving me this opportunity.
Captain Dagman, you're muted.
Sorry. I said thank you very much, Ms. Sonali Banerjee, for that wonderful look at the SDG number 5, because that would only give us a healthy mind in the work relationship, and that would ensure a healthy shipping, a healthy planet, because I'm sure the gender equality would lead to a great balance in the shipping world, and we need to be more responsible to each other to make sure that we look into more seriously into the other SDGs that you pointed, 12, 13, and of course, the initial ones of 1, 2, and 3, poverty, hunger, all could be looked well into if together we stand and we bring up the shipping in the right mode. Yes, you also asked for the vision from the Indian side to meet the sustainable development goals. I'm sure they think serious about it. And post-COVID-19, we will be looking very seriously into these SDGs of IMO. Yes, the important development for the ecosystem is also being considered. As you would know very well, that our Ministry of Surface Transportation are very serious about the maritime growth. So once again, a big thank you on behalf of NMDCC for you sharing with us for the DICE, and we look forward to much more interactions with you later. Thank you. We will now look into our third learned speaker, who happens to be the most popular gentleman called Krish. Captain Siva Raman Krishnamurthy. Commenced his sea career in the year 1982 with the Dredging Corporation of India. He moved to mainstream merchant navy in Hisar Shipping in the year 1986 and served in ascending capacities with Univar, Ferguson Worldwide, Bernard Schultz, and Tanker Pacific. He completed his master's qualification at the University of Sydney, Australia. He retired from CE in 2007. I do not believe that. Retirement is not a we seafarers ball game. After 7 years of command on ocean-going oil tankers. He has held senior leadership positions in ship management and is currently director of Trim Sail Digital Solution, his own startup company. Congratulations, Captain. He's also a marine technology advisor to Kolkata Port Trust to bring in the amphibian technology for pilot craft. Krish is a fellow of the Nautical Institute and its past global president for the year 2012-14 term. We had the privilege to host you in Calcutta, Captain Krish, with the wonderful interactive session with the Association of Master Mariners on the rule of the road. He has played a key role in setting up in the India South branch in 2001. He is the author of several thought-provoking captain's columns in the NIS journal Seaways. He has been a member of the Institute's governing council since 2005, providing strategic inputs. Well, today he is here during COVID to highlight an incident which is as fresh as can be in everybody's mind, the ever-given episode, What Lies Beneath. Over to Captain Krishnamurthy.
Thank you very much, Captain Ali Dagman. My greetings to all of you, Shri K. K.M. Rao, POMMD, Captain Surendra Manocha, distinguished co-panelists and dear audience. It's lovely to be here at NMDC once again to share a few thoughts. Of course, the topic I chose in the ever given episode in Suez Canal and what lies beneath. Of course, we might wonder what it has to do with sustainability of shipping, and I'm here to demonstrate to you that it has a lot to do with sustainability. Now, sometimes when we hear about shipping sustainability, I get a little bit confused, bemused, because as Captain Bhargava said, shipping has been around for as long as human memory exists, centuries, if not millennia. Commodities have come, commodities have gone, passengers have come and gone. The fashions in the world have changed, the trends have changed. Producing regions have become consuming regions, consuming regions have become deserts. But maritime trade has always continued, and ships have always been around. So what is it that worries us, really? What are the things that threaten shipping sustainability? Well, there are two aspects to this. One is the trade as such sustainable going forward the next 100 or 200 years? And that is something all stakeholders will be concerning themselves about. And the other aspect of sustainability, of course, is environment. Whether the activity of shipping is causing deleterious effect and unsustainable adverse impact on the environment itself. And that is, again, another aspect that stakeholders within the industry and without are all concerned about. Now, as far as trade sustainability is concerned, I think Ms. Banerjee hit the nail on the head. We need to really think a little deeply about setting age limits. When we build a ship, typically it is built for about 25, 30 odd years. And then to set an artificial limit of 15 years, is it really a sustainable way to go about it? Because the cost of construction consumes a huge amount of energy and makes a huge carbon footprint, as Sonali said. And the cost of scrapping equally consumes a huge amount of energy. So the other threat to sustainability of the trade itself is a series of disruptions that comes from interested groups around the world, economic blocks, if you may. And they come in the form of either technological disruptions or legislative disruptions, especially legislative disruptions with riding on ecological concerns. And so that makes our current new villain is, of course, carbon, and therefore decarbonization and changing the fuel has become a key discussion point. Yes, we know that global shipping consumes about 17% of all oil production, crude oil production. But what we need to keep in mind is that it also serves 80% of international trade, without which, as someone said, half the world would freeze and half the world would starve. So where do we find the balance? How do we go about improving and making more efficient a service, a shipping service, which is already extremely cost efficient and energy efficient? So is that the route that is the only way to reduce the carbon footprint? Or again, referring back to Sonali's sustainable goals, should we seriously look as a global community at our consumption patterns? Overconsumption is an issue. There are some parts of the world which are struggling with resources and some which are blessed with excessive resources, and consumptions are very, very high. So if you reduce consumption, automatically the dependence on shipping will also come down, and the ton miles will come down, the trade will come down. So that is one way of looking at it. But anyway, what I want to talk about is the impact of maritime incidents I mean, I don't intend to go into the Ever Given's case from an operational point of view and do armchair investigation. But what I would like to stress upon is the impact of maritime incidents on sustainability of shipping, in terms of reputation, in terms of damage to property, damage to environment, and the risk that it carries to human life. So this is the picture that's gone viral all over the world. Lots of memes, lots of jokes on the social media. But really, as professionals, when we look at that image, I think some questions come into your mind. How big is big? I mean, a ship out at sea can be as big as it wants to be. It's like a whale. There are no restrictions. It's as you come closer into narrow channels and restricted waters, that's when you have the elephant in your living room. So as a navigator, the first thing that occurs to me is that canal is not wide enough to even turn this ship around. It's not as wide as it looks. It looks wide on the surface, but beneath the surface, obviously, the width of the navigable canal is not wide enough. And so if you imagine a strong gust of wind across the desert, blowing your 12 containers high ship to one side, really she's helpless, as helpless as a whale on a beach. And what kind of infrastructure are we providing to make sure that such risk is minimized or mitigated? So these are the questions I'd like to ask. And where maritime incidents are concerned, human memory is rather short. We are shocked every time an incident happens, but we very quickly forget also. As I was joking the other day, by the time an investigation report comes out on this one, we are sure to have another incident coming up. So that is your history. I mean, 2004, Suez Canal, 2017, another grounding, 2018, 3 bulk carriers collided and piled up. 2020, we had a 18,000 TEU vessel run aground for a few hours. So it's not as though the warning bells were not there. And what happened to Ever Given gained prominence in the social media because it disrupted the flow of traffic, being a canal. And incidents is not the way to sustainable shipping. So I recall, back, I think in 2013, I was in Cyprus on a very interesting seminar, Nautical Institute seminar, on master pilot relationship, and one of the speakers was from the Swedish club. They have done a lot of research into the maritime incidents, obviously, because they're paying out the third-party claims. Of course, what they came out with, the Swedish P&I club, is a no-brainer, really. It's obvious that a vessel will be at its highest risk when it is in restricted confined waters. That is pretty obvious. We don't need statistical evidence of that. And 84% of all the groundings obviously will happen there. And 30% of all collisions, 66% of all contacts, and 58% of all groundings occur with the pilot on board. Now, this is not to cast any kind of aspersions on the professional capabilities of pilots around the world, or indeed on masters and navigators. I think by and large, they do a fabulous job, regardless of their own local idiosyncrasies. I think I haven't seen an unprofessional pilot at all in my entire sea career. They do the best. The problem here is not the pilots, not the navigators, not the human element as much as it is the infrastructure that is available, the resources that are available to them to navigate the ship safely into the port and out of it. And I'd like to briefly touch upon the aspects of law. Why is it that every time an incident happens, suddenly the pilot becomes an advisor, the port becomes a service provider, and everything gets blamed onto the ship, the carrier, the owner, and of course the master. That is because we have archaic laws which I think are in bad need of repealing. we have some really ancient laws. There was a time in the past where, yes, the master had a lot of control over the trade that he was engaging in. He had to make the decisions about the port and the safety of the port that he calls upon, and the cargo that he carries, and the incidents that happen are almost entirely a direct consequence of the decisions that he takes. Of course, I needn't stress upon this audience that that is no longer the case. Things have changed quite a lot. A lot of the controls have gone ashore, whether it is about the size of the ship, about the ports it can call upon, about the under-keel clearance, about the kind of cargo that you can carry, the construction of the vessel, the safety, everything has gone outside the control of the master. And therefore, it doesn't serve any further purpose by holding masters and the ships as hostages to every incident. And also insurance, that is the most convenient thing. Everybody is happy, the traders, the brokers, the ship owners, the ports are all happy to absolve themselves by saying, oh, that was a navigational error. Preferably, it's a crew negligence, and then you go around. That is because of the existence of the third-party liability, third-party cover that is available to the ship owner. So you have insurance, you can pay out. And now we are looking at payouts running into several hundreds of millions, if not billions of US dollars of claims. What's interesting is that while in this particular case, the Suez Canal Authority has already started talking about claiming a huge amount of amount from the owner. The owner has gone ahead and sued the operator, Evergreen, for all claims that have already been placed and will be placed in the future. So that's an interesting turn of events. And perhaps maybe there will be a volte-face in this whole attitude that it is the most convenient thing to simply blame the ship and then forget about it because the insurance amount is being paid up. So the larger question I want to ask is, just because of the existence of such a third-party insurance cover, does it make it okay for the ports not to be held accountable? What kind of infrastructure are they providing? And that is the crux of what I want to discuss with you. Are the ports and their infrastructure adequate for the kind of ships that they bring? Because in the aftermath of any incident, the usual questions are about the ship's age, where was it built, what kind of crew, who was flagging it. I mean, I see an inordinate amount of research papers into the ship, and rightly so. I'm not even saying it shouldn't be, because that helps the world of shipping get far more and more efficient, more and more compliant to some existing standards set by the IMO, and flowing down to the flag states. Questions are asked about equipment failures. Who is the ship owner? Did the crew have alcohol just before, or were they suffering from fatigue? How many hours were they working? How many hours were they resting? All these are good questions. I'm not claiming that they should not be asked. All I'm saying is, what are the questions that we are not asking? Especially since in the background of the fact that most of these kind of incidents, severe incidents, occur in confined waters within the jurisdiction of ports. What is the available under-keel clearance? More importantly, what is the width of such under-keel clearance available in a canal or a channel? What kind of bends and how sharp is the bend? What kind of tug support is available? Because a ship, especially a large ship like the Ever Given, with a single screw or a twin screw, will find it hard pressed. In spite of a bow thruster, will still find it hard pressed, moving at 13 knots to be able to control the consequences of a strong gust of wind. So, and I'm not talking only about this particular incident. Anywhere in the world, any port, any large ship coming into any port, what is the compatibility? What is the standard, that we set? Where does the pilot board? And within the Indian context, that's a very important question to ask, because that depends on many things. It depends on the weather. It depends on the condition of the pilot vessel. It's not as if the pilots don't want to come, but the pilot launches are just not fit to go out that far. And what about the berth? It was built maybe in 1848, and now we're bringing larger and larger ships. Is it still capable of those kind of handling those kind of dimensions safely and sustainably? Okay, and what do we do in case of bad weather? What is the role of the vessel traffic management system? We have state of the art. I mean, we've had an incident way back, I think down of Kanchipuram and BW Maple in my backyard here in Chennai. And the port had a state of the art VTMS equipment, but the operators, there is no standard of qualification, no experience in handling that traffic, and therefore, what could have been it could have been prevented. The disaster could have been prevented. So the sum and substance of my submission here is that how safe is the navigation infrastructure? I'm not specifying any particular port or terminal or canal. All over the world, mariners have this question asked, is it compatible? Is this port good enough to receive my ship? And those questions lead to a larger question of standards. Within the shipping world, we have, of course, the IMO setting the benchmarks with SOLAS, with MARPOL, STCW, IAX setting the standards for class and, classification of ships. Do we have at least national standards for the design criteria of seaports and terminals? The aviation industry has very, very precise standards, very clearly metricated, and both for the aircraft, the safety standards for the aircraft, as well as for the airports, and from the ICAO, we have, to take the instance of India, we have the Directorate General of Civil Aviation to handle the aircraft side, air side, and the Airports Authority to look at the land side infrastructure. And they have standardized across the world. You land at any airport, you will find similar signposts, length of runway, breadth of runway, construction, leading lights, beacons, everything is very, very precisely set to a given standard. I am yet to see, I've spoken about this once at an IAPH conference very strongly way back in 2013, and they haven't called me back for another speech. But this such is the life here. So while IMO sets the standards, seaports require some standards. They cannot continue to be autonomous bodies. They have to be held accountable, and the accountability matrix has to run all the way to either a national or an international standards. And that is how we can go around mitigating and reducing the frequency and the consequence of maritime incidents. So I'll close with that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I'll end with the concluding remark that navigational safety is at the very soul of sustainable shipping. It's not the only one, but it is an important element. I just wanted to highlight that to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Captain Krishnamurthy. Yes, the Ever Given is an eye-opener. But as you rightly said, there's much more to look into from these incidents than to just start pointing fingers at things like the nationality, the design of the ship, who's running the ship. Yes, the unimportant questions always. Why not the important questions being asked? Was the width enough? Under clearance? Was the canal broad enough to take up a ship like the Ever Given size? Yes, the growth is there, and this should be all around. Why there is no accountability? True. Why only the master, the pilot, or the crew? Why not the seaport and canal? Very rightly pointed out that if we can have stricter regulations for the aircraft and the airports, international as well as national, why not for the shipping trade? Thank you very much, Captain Krishnamurthy, for highlighting these issues. And I hope that post-COVID-19, the ships will be sustainable, the shipping will be sustainable. As we say, stay safe, the shipping stays safe, the crew stage chief. Thank you again. We now have with us a gentleman who has recovered from COVID. As near as just the last week, Captain Anush Sahai, when we reached out to him for his resume and his presentation topic, gentleman was fighting in the hospital for his recovery. We extend a big thank you to you, Captain Sahai, for that wonderful effort of recovering in time to be with us this morning. Captain Anush Sahai is a seasoned marine professional with over 30 years of broad knowledge in marine industry, having led teams across cultures while maintaining a strong client relationship with key stakeholders. He has successfully led several businesses in Asia and produced results mainly through strategic business planning and implementation, operational risk management, business development with leadership across cultures, with solid foundation in technical, commercial, local Asian know-how. Anuj is presently serving as a managing director and hands-on salvage master with TNT of Salvage Asia, where he has led numerous salvage and wreck removal projects and deeply involved in all aspects of marine salvage and emergency response globally. Although coming from a sailing background, Anu did have passion for training and consulting, and after obtaining MBA from the National University of Singapore, consulted numerous organizations, helping them restructure, reorganize, and re-energize on safety and operational excellence aspects for on behalf of oil majors in Asia, with focus campaigns on behavior-based safety and human factor. Anuj is a certified MBTI and HEGA LR human element gap analysis practitioner in Asia and facilitated over 200 workshops, trainings, seminars in leadership across shipping companies, insurance companies in Asia and Europe. He enjoys playing cricket and is the founder of Mariners Cricket Club in Singapore. That you have time for playing, Captain Sahai, we are happy to know that. Very befitting topic for the day for Captain Sahai, salvage and emergency response in COVID pandemic times. Captain Sahai, all yours. You are muted, sir. Okay.
Thanks very much, Captain. I mentioned about 30 years.
Still cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
It's coming in soft, Captain Sahai. Maybe better, a little more improvement could help. Still soft.
How do you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Loud and clear now.
Great. Yeah, all right. Great, great. Right, thanks very much. Let me just open up my presentation and then we can continue. Not a problem. Right, can everybody see my presentation, the slide that I'm sharing?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. First of all, thanks very much for the panel and the host for inviting me over from Singapore. It's not very often that we get invited to do such presentations on the web. You know, we normally just do physical things, and I'm a very hands-on guy, so I go on board ships, and I still do, and do things where nobody asks me any questions, and we just go ahead and do, you know, as we please. We really have a long rope as a sailboat. The topic, actually, I want to keep it very relevant during COVID times. And we have, in the last 12 months, a lot of experience in terms of like having to deal with the COVID, whether in America, in South America, in Asia. And what I will do is I will give you, this is just talk very briefly about salvage, because I don't think many people really hear or know about a salvage except if something like ever given ever happens. But otherwise, it's very quiet on the shipping side of the things. And then I'll talk a little bit about the global impact of COVID-19 on the emergency responses. Some of the policies we have formulated as a result of being international salvers, and then a small case study that I recently did in India, which gave me the COVID. So this is, I joined TNT Salvage about 3 years ago, and it's an international global salver committed to marine emergency response and preparedness. We serve both maritime as well as energy sectors. There's the offshore sector. And being a marine salvage company, we of course maintain the operational readiness throughout Americas, Europe, and Asia. In Asia, in Singapore, we have a regional headquarters, warehouse, and we maintain from there the presence all the way from Japan to United Arab Emirates. And from there, of course, the Europe takes over. We have company-owned equipment. In Singapore, I have a huge warehouse where I keep salvage equipment, which are always kept ready, rarely get used, but when they do, they really do a good job. And the company actually belongs to a Teichmann Group. Typically, salvage companies are not very big. It's a very small market, just about maybe 600 million to $1 billion a year. So you don't have room for very, very many players. And all the salvage companies are very specialist in what they do. And that's what they like to do. We are not doing normal business. So for example, we do have a lot of divers, but we won't dive for doing your hull cleaning. We will dive only when the ship is having some issues. And we go and do things when you really need help. So basically, it's casualty responses. That's where we work. We have a lot of experience in TNT, with about 60 years of experience and maybe about now more than 1,500 successful emergency response operations. So on the left-hand side, you see this is one of the biggest wreck removal operation ever undertaken, and that is Golden Ray. This is a car carrier with about 4,500 cars, which sank in Americas. And you see a crane, which is now, of course, named as TCR 10,000, but its name was actually Versabar VB 10,000. It's a 10,000 crane. The ship has been actually sliced in about 6 or 7 sections, and one of the sections you see is being lifted is about 10,000 tons or 8,000 tons approximately. But that's what we do when we don't have the emergency responses, typically a wreck removal, which is a project kind of thing. But whether it's a project or it's a salvage or emergency response, it's basically the same preparation that goes. A lot of engineering, a lot of planning, and of course, a lot of interaction with the insurance companies, stakeholders, P&I clubs, hull underwriters, and of course, the ship owner and the ship manager. So together with these, alongside, of course, having the local administration, which is always the port authorities, they always want to have their say as well. Together, it all makes an emergency response for a salvo. These are a couple of things that we have done in the last couple of years. You can see we have a presence almost all across the globe. Of course, more in Americas, because that's where the company was set up. But you can see a lot of action in South America, Asia, and Europe. So adopting the new normal, this has been the topic, and I would say salvage is not a normal operation ever. It's always very chaotic, because we often get invited, like ship is sinking or ship is having a big fire on board, and then we are asked, come and help, and we say, can you give us some more information? And they say, what information? We don't have any more information. We probably can't contact the captain. Maybe the captain, all these on board, he's really confused and panicking. Things like that happen very, very often with us. So we are actually always operating as if like you don't have much information, you just need to get it started. Obviously, a salver will never say no. He will not ask questions. He just say, what happened? Tell us in terms of preparing, how do we go and respond, rather than why it happened. We never ask ever why it happened. We never investigate the cause. We just want to take on from there and then move on and see how we will do the thing. So what is salvage? there has been a big question like, what do we call a salvage, and when it becomes a normal casualty into a salvage? So there is a definition which a lot of people, I mean, say is in jest, a science of vague assumptions based on debatable figures from inconclusive instruments and performed with the equipment of problematical accuracy and of persons like myself of doubtful reliability and questionable mentality. You got to be crazy to be a salver. But that's how it is very often. So this, adding a bit on this, when you have a COVID situation, which is what we experienced a couple of times. I was last year, had an operation in Africa, in a place called Beira, where we had a ship grounded and we could not fly. Nobody could fly. It was in April, May last year, when all the flights had been completely virtually stopped. So we had to find our team in South Africa, from where we took a chartered flight. We flew the guys over, a couple of them, and we took a couple of boats from Durban and flew them, got the guys there. And then we had, a salvage team, which took about 4 or 5 days to reach really on board. And then, of course, we could take the ship out from there and deliver the ship to the guys in Port Louis, Mauritius. So it took a while to get there. It was an interesting experience. That was my first remote salvage job, because I had to literally do everything here in Singapore, just arranging things and making sure that we have the regular building blocks in place. The technical plan is there, the engineering solutions are there, the tugs are there, and just get it done. So very interesting stuff like that does happen in our business. So here we had, that was the first brush with a COVID during the salvage situation. But then of course we quickly geared up and we start looking how do we actually prepare ourselves, because we tell everybody we are there 24/7. So first thing was, of course, to start looking at the WHO and CDC requirements, like how do we make sure that we are ready. There was no vaccine in those days, of course. Now the vaccine is come, but at that point in time, we just had to be there. And one of the things that we said, all right, when we have to fly, we will always fly in a chartered flight. So we had the network of chartered flights available to us anywhere, and we actually built up a very good repo. And that's what we've done about 3 or 4 times in the last 12 months. We also have to follow all the local laws. I mean, it could be like, we have the WHO standards, but in Singapore, in Indonesia, in India, the rules are very different. And the enforcement of rule is even more different. Like, you have very stringent laws, but in some places, the enforcement is very, very weak. And that's where actually you need to be much more, careful, because not everybody is following, and the COVID can actually stop your operations. A lot of meetings, as a norm nowadays, the virtual meetings are now a norm. But in the beginning, in last year, people were not very much used to it. So there was, especially people like me, were having a problem in trying to talk to the salvage engineers, the naval architects, and how do we really put together the whole thing. We wanted everybody to be there in one room, but the room became virtual. It took us a while for us to get adjusted to that reality. And it was an interesting exercise, and we say, okay, you never really stop learning. So that was a couple of things that we said, and we needed to really make sure that we have the COVID readiness packages. That was a new package added to our packages that we have, the salvage package. One of them happened to be not COVID package, which was like thermal imaging, a lot of like your stuff like the face masks, the suits and everything that had to be put there to make sure that we actually go along with the safety package. We have a COVID package to go with it. We also had a COVID officer that became a requirement, and from our perspective in Singapore, of course, they have very clear requirement that you need to have somebody defined, and also the offices. Most of the offices are virtual now, but a salvage company can't really have a virtual office. We really need to come to the office, start looking at our equipment. We do maintenance and all that, and of course, when it comes to mobilization, people have to be physically present to make sure that the right equipment goes. It is tested before it goes on the job. So those kind of things we had to put in advance. Like we really had to do a couple of drills to make sure that actually we can respond in emergency. And this is actually a big challenge for a salvage company, because it's not a huge, like, outfit. Always there are about 20, 25 people, very specialists in their jobs, and they need to really be there together. So we had all those plans, travel policies, visitors policies, operational policies, and things like that. We just needed to make sure that we have all of it. And of course, then we had to do daily screening and all, which is a local requirement here in Singapore. And we had to really pass it on virtual on a phone. So we had, everybody had applications and all installed on their laptops, iPhones and all, and people had been working on that as well. And this was across all over, like we had in Europe, in Americas, in South America, and in Asia. Same sort of like standard had to be implemented. And the leadership teams were talking to each other all the time to make sure that actually, if something does go wrong, we are there. Interestingly, we did have COVID incidents everywhere. We were doing a job in Colombia, a salvage job, and the salvage master got a COVID. He was in the ICU for about 50 odd days, but it just happened. Irrespective of how many precautions you take, it's very, very difficult at times to avoid it. Similar thing happened on the Golden Ray, which is one of the biggest wreck removal projects going on in America. And we had about 3 or 4 cases out there. That is in spite of like having those 14 days of like complete isolation, putting the guys on the job. Still so there is issues, and then we had like internally, of course, you can set up like Microsoft Teams, the Zoom virtual platform, but very often when you're talking to the insurance company, the shipping company, they might have a different platform, and it does pose a challenge at times, because you really got to get used to every possible virtual meeting platform. Really have to do the drill, make sure that you're there, and make everybody comfortable. So we really had to gear up and make sure that we had of course our IT team, which was setting us up and making sure that we actually are comfortable and talking business, rather than getting mired with the issues of IT issues that we have. So we did lots and lots of it. We did a couple of drills, virtual incident command post we did. As a matter of fact, we do a monthly drill nowadays with our clients, companies and all, to just make sure that they understand how we are going to operate and what are our limitations more than anything else. One of the issues that has not been discussed in detail, I think, COVID-19, that you do have these heat-related illnesses, especially in the summer months. You're wearing a space suit and doing the job because you don't want to get COVID, but it really poses a lot of challenges, because you really work in a very hot weather at times, especially in Indian contexts, in Bangladesh, or in Arabian Gulf. In those areas, the heat can really be very sapping. And it has happened to people that they got a heat stroke. Last year, we had one case for that as well. So you really have to manage those kind of like issues when stuff happens. I will talk about this particular case which happened to us last year. This is about, I actually had a small video which we couldn't really screen, but I'll give you a little bit just of what happened here. So this is an incident that happened on 8th of March last year. It's a boom of a big crane barge called LTS 3000. It's about 95 meters, and it fell down in the water in about 90 meters depth. So pretty unusual stuff. This is what the incident is. The 4-leg jacket D32 in Mumbai High suffered a catastrophic crane failure on the 8th March 2020. The boom section had uncontrolled fall and came to the rest on top of the jacket. Now, subsequently, the jacket was actually also scuttled, and this boom was allowed to actually let go in the water. 800 tons of boom detached from the jacket, and then it was lying there, and we were asked to remove it because the whole section, that area, came to a grinding halt, and we had to remove everything. So a survey was undertaken. We said we need a report. We couldn't go ourselves, and the P&I club, which is GUARD in this instance, they said, all right, they will arrange for a survey and they produce a report for us. The report indicated, yeah, the boom has fallen, And because it has fallen from such a big height, 85 meters, it is quite badly damaged. Now, had it been in a sound condition, it would have been very easy for us just to lift up, use crane barges and heavy lift assets. We could have lifted. But because it had so many damages, we had to plan in a different way. Like we had to cut it and then pick the sections so it is not posing too much of a challenge. So that was the first challenge we had. On top of it, we also had some challenges because if you see on the right-hand side here in this screen, it had debris fallen about 200 meters by 200 meters, all over the place. So there were a lot of debris, and the client wanted every portion, every part of the debris to be removed 100%. They didn't really want to leave anything behind because that would have created a problem when they were drilling a well later on. So we needed to carry out a survey and find every possible debris out here and remove it. So this is actually on the left-hand side. You see, this is the location out here, right, about 95 miles from Mumbai. And that's where the incident happened. It's a new oil field. It's not yet charted as well. The charts don't have it, but it will probably time this year they will get installed jacket and they'll start working. And this is the image of the boom, which is lying at about 85 meters of water. You can see this is the debris I'm talking about. This is the wire, and it's lying in about 70 meters away, at least 70 meters away from the boom itself. Now, if it is on the surface, it's not a problem. You can always walk. But when it is in 70 meters of water, you really have a challenge because you really have to shift your crane barge and be right on top of it. So you go all over the place, continue to shift all the time, and then make sure that actually you are right on top of it so you can actually get your divers lifted to connect it, and then you have to lift it up. So that was one of the challenges we had. In terms of like project execution of the problem, we made a technical plan, we made a timeline, the project deliverables were all there, and they were presented to the client, and they accepted it. They said, all right, we will get on and do the job. So that's how we did the mobilization. Of course, this is what was needed. So we needed a lot of assets of multiple specialties. Like for example, we needed a crane barge. And you can see on the left-hand top corner that this is the crane barge where we had to do a lot of preparations. We needed very special equipment called chain pullers, which is on the right-hand side here. These had to be installed on the barge, and they were not available. Not everything was available in Singapore. So some of the items, such as these fairleads, they had to be brought in from America, airlifted from America. So they were about 50 tons of like these fairleads they brought in from US to Singapore, and then we put them on the barge, and then we did the installation. Similarly, to work at about 85 meters of water, we needed very specialized diving requirements, like saturation diving, what we call, and we did the installation of these SAT system also in Indonesia. These are the things that were, of course, some of the things. You also had an ROV, a work-class ROV, which will help in identifying where the things were, carry out a survey, and help us in managing, all those underwater works. So all these things we had to plan well ahead, arrange everything together, and then do the installation. That is all actually part of any project. Any project we plan, we have to do things right. The challenge was that our team, which was in Singapore, could not do all these things themselves. We had to send across the crane barge to Indonesia to carry out the work and do the installation. Now that was all very well, except that all the COVID protocols that we spoke about earlier were actually meant to be done in Mumbai when we were going over there, and we said, all right, we're going to have very strict, stringent protocols, but we didn't think too much that we actually have to implement the same protocols and everything else because the time pressure that was on us in Indonesia itself. So we went there on about 20th of November. It was, 20th of November, and we were there for about a week. We allowed for a week to do the installation. And as we were finishing, we found unfortunately for us, that a couple of guys on board a ship had tested positive. Now, those are not necessarily our salvage master or salvage personnel, but the people in the shipyard. They came in contact, nobody could blame nobody. So the end result was that the work stopped. The local authorities evacuated the train bars, the tugs, and all the SS. Everybody had to be removed, and we had to put security personnel on board. And that was very challenging because in the rough, not so clear weather, because November is northeast monsoon, and during those times, you really have to put security personnel plus other sailors on board just to make sure that the ship remains safe out there at the anchorage. And that was for about 10 to 15 days. So we lost a lot of time and had a first-hand experience of the COVID outbreak on board a project even before it kicked off. So that was a very interesting challenge. Of course, our project manager on that project, who had gone from Singapore to Indonesia, he had a COVID as well. And we had to evacuate him from Indonesia to Singapore. That was interesting challenge for us, but we managed to get him here. He stayed in the hospital for about 15 days. I think his was much worse than mine because he really had the issues with the lungs and all that. This is something I want to bring it right in the beginning because this is not really the main theme for our discussion. This is something that is one of the sections of the boom that was lifted. So this is what we're talking about. We had 3 of these sections which are lifted, and that is a project. So nothing to worry about these things, but the prep work that went into doing this was something like this. Uh-oh, sorry about that. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. So this is the schematic of the crane barge that we had taken from Singapore. It's a 450-ton crane, and it had to have everything inside. So we have on the right-hand side accommodation for about 150 people. We had done the installation of an ROV over here, which will work with us. There was a saturation dive system that was installed over here. It will work in about 90 meters of water. And we had these chain pullers. The job of the chain pullers was to lift those pieces to about 6 meters below the water level, from 85 meter to the 6 meter. And then from there, the thing will be changed and the crane itself will pick it up from 6 meter below to the deck. So that was a plan. And these are the COVID action plan. We had to make a very specific COVID action plan. Interesting plan because in addition to what we have our own protocol, we had to follow the P&I Club protocol, which was much more stringent than our own. Plus, we had to follow the Director General of Shipping, DG Shippings, Government of India, ONGC, and LNT. They all had different kind of like COVID plans. And then we really had to integrate all this together and then present to the authorities to make sure that actually it is compliant. And that's what we did. Now, what happens, you end up with a very voluminous document. It has almost everything, and people seem to lose actually why the plan is being made. So we really brought it down again to single pages, something like this. Sanitize, do very simple things, just make sure these get enforced. Declarations, temperature check, everybody has been given thermometers and all those kind of things, which nowadays everybody has. But we also had a thermal imaging. So we made sure that on the crane barge, anybody who's coming on board, a temperature is actually self-checked, recorded with this photograph. These things were quite handy later on. And this is what we made for individuals, everybody. How does he start from wherever he is? And a lot of people were actually flying. They fly, they do the mandatory PCR test, arrive in the second port, the third port, how they go into isolation in a hotel, how long they will stay. And of course, we just need to make sure that everybody who is coming on the job is completely COVID-free, and to make sure that just in the unlikely when we do end up having somebody who's having a COVID, we created the bubbles, 2 bubbles of 50 people each, so even if there's a problem in one bubble, the work continues in the second bubble. So we really had to split teams into two, and those teams were considered completely safe. We brought in lots and lots of equipment from Singapore and from India just to make sure that everything remains sanitized. There were really special emphasis. We had actually 10 extra people on board a train bar just to make sure that things were actually cleaned up and sanitized. So that was really the biggest, exercise undertaken in addition to, of course, what work we had been doing. There were COVID officers, there were doctors on board just to make sure that these things happen. And pretty interesting exercise, actually. In order to make sure that people understand how serious we are in terms of like enforcing the COVID requirements, we actually prior departure from the hotel where we had been for about 15 days in Mumbai, we did these kind of like briefing sessions for everybody. So make sure that while we are doing it, please take it seriously, and then we did these, the things that will be actually implemented on board. So people were actually very familiar how the COVID requirements will be implemented once we are on in the field. And some of the things like do's and don'ts, I think is pretty standard. So this is actually you see in the left and top, the briefing sessions being conducted. People are saying these are the space suits given to everybody, the isolation suits when they actually leave the hotel. And that was actually the biggest thing we had. That in Mumbai at that point in time, there was an outbreak, COVID outbreak. It was really raging at that point in time. So we said, all right, this is our weakest link. And we made sure that everybody actually, when it leaves hotel, to the time it reaches on board, you really need to do all these things. So you see in the bus itself, we have everybody who's wearing like COVID suit, leaving from the hotel and everything. This was done like, we were really scared that if something happens, it will be very difficult to explain as to why our COVID standards are not up to the mark. And these are some of the things that were implemented, like what happens, we had an action plan. If something goes wrong, how will we make sure that the work continues, because the delay, as you have seen, never given as well. Like it's not the incident, but the aftermath of the incident and the delays to everything else that actually creates a bigger problem. We did have an issue because in Indonesia, before departure, all the crew had been taken off because there was a COVID outbreak out there, and the crane barge left without any crew. Just port security personnel is all we had. Everybody else had actually been removed. We needed to connect those people, especially the crane operators and the barge master, especially salvors and all. So we actually chartered an aircraft who flew in from Singapore to Batam, from Batam to Digol in Sri Lanka, and we connected all our crew to make sure that at least the crane remains operable at all times. So that was one of the challenges that we had. A lot of restrictions, as a matter of fact, because really Sri Lanka had a lot of like restrictions in terms of who they were allowed to come in. So we had to do multiple COVID tests before anybody could come in, and just to make sure that these actually have been done properly. And we have had many cases where the COVID test comes out negative, but the person actually is having COVID. So we really want to make sure that we actually have our own kits on board and the doctor who will actually do the test. And this was done multiple times on routine, all the time on board the vessel as well. So these are some of the challenges that I had in terms of like making sure that the COVID protocols are followed and forth. And even then, like, what happens, you have to accept it. Like, if you're running a ship or you're running any project, the incident for which you actually develop a risk mitigation plan, it will be realized at some point in time. What do you do at that point in time? You see, yeah, we expected these things to happen, and here's a plan. Work continues. Luckily for us, in this particular wreck removal project, we did manage to finish actually job back on time. Said we'll finish on the 12th of Feb, and we actually finished on 12th of Feb. So that was plain lucky, I would say, because in spite of so many delays and all, the things that we expected might go wrong. For example, if that sad diving system breaks up, the ROV doesn't work, or the crane is not working, those kind of things didn't happen. And the project just sailed through without any issues whatsoever. So these are very interesting periods. Luckily, the COVID is now, I think, even though it is very widespread at this point in time, especially in India and all that. But the intensity is, I think, somewhat lesser now. More and more people are getting vaccinated. So you do have a situation where it is taken as if like, okay, it is probably just a little bit more than a flu, flu or something like that. Because I had a COVID as well, and nobody panicked. We said, fine, you have it, go in the hospital, stay there for 10, 15 days. Everybody was talking to me. And then, of course, I continued with my work because the project is still going on. And we just finished it off without really bothering much about it. But yeah, these are interesting times, and it's not us, but our clients who actually get much more impacted by these kind of things. So it has been like an exercise which we have got good experience and firsthand. And I hope in the next 6 to 8 months it will just peter out and then get back to normal operations all over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Saib, for a lovely journey into salvage work. Well, we rightly said that there is no new normal for you. You've been always dealing with abnormal situations. Every time you took up a job or entered into salvage work, something which is not normal. We had a good look at your LTS 3000 wreck removal, but that it would end up with COVID positive cases in that number, and also for you, was a little disheartening. But as you said rightly, the challenges are never ending in salvage work. And yes, the salvaging has to continue. If we have to sustain, we will slip somewhere, and therefore we need somebody to pull us.
Please continue having some accidents, because when I was in the safety, I brought the standards really so different that there was no incidents almost, and now I'm actually having problems. There are not enough accidents happening around.
I know. This could happen, but as I said, you had a great preparation for it. I could see that you are stuck to COVID-19 plan, and everything that was executed, which a tough rigmarole. But you did a good job, and thank you for your presentation on that. We will now leave you behind and move ahead with the Senior Principal Surveyor of IRS, Mr. Amit Bhatnagar. Mr. Amit Bhatnagar's presentation is on the theme Sustainable Shipping Beyond COVID-19. And just to highlight Mr. Amit Bhatnagar's achievements, he has actually started his career as a welding specialist, and then he joined the Indian Coast Guard. He held the appointments of engineer officer on board various types of ships. He was awarded for his gallantry efforts for rescue and salvage of a merchant ship in 1996. There you are. We have people who have been into salvage along with Captain Sahai. We have seen Mr. Bhatnagar since 2002 in IRS, when he joined at the Goa and served at Fuzhou in China in the IRS head office. He has served in Mumbai, Singapore, Visakhapatnam, and instrumental in providing on-job training and mentoring of surveyors for classification surveys, marine component inspections, and audits for Maritime Management System Auditor. Although he holds a postgraduate degree in naval architecture, the Institution of Engineers recognized his contribution to the maritime industry and presented him with the Eminent Marine Engineer Award in 2014. He has been conferred with the Vijay Ratan Gold Medal, Indian Business Excellence Award, and Star of Asia Award in 2015. He has also delivered the prestigious Rear Admiral T. Bose Memorial Lecture during the National Convention of Marine Engineers in 2017. Author, he's titled the book Sailing Through the Winds, an Insight into Merchant Navy Career, for the benefit of the youngsters aspiring career in Merchant Navy. He's also been authored to papers published at various international conferences, journals, including Maritime System and Technology, MASC 2007 at Geneva, and MASC 2011 at Marseille, Marine Engineers Review India, Seaports of Tomorrow, Go Green Seminar, Institute of Marine Engineers, Global Maritime Seminar. Are we lucky to have you also here, sir, in this seminar? Thank you very much for being with us as a branch chair, the principal surveyor of IRS and the chairman of IME Kolkata branch. I request Mr. Amit Bhatnagar to go ahead with his presentation on the theme, Sustainable Shipping Beyond COVID-19. Mr. Bhatnagar, please.
Thanks, Captain Dagman, for the kind words and organizing committee for this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and happy Maritime Week 2021. Can I share my screen now?
Request Mr. Sai to please stop sharing. So that Mr. Bhatnagar could start.
Right.
Am I able to share my presentation?
Your screen is visible.
First page.
Screen is visible.
Sri Walchand Hirachand, though was not the first Indian to enter into shipping business, however, he was the first persistent ship owner to survive the British hegemony. Earlier, a couple of Indian business houses, including legendary J.R.D. Tata and V.O. Chidambaram, tried their hands in shipping. However, the price war did not allow them to survive. Mr. Walchand Hirachand Doshi, with his friend and the major investor, Sri Narottam Morarji, purchased the ship from Maharajas India, which was earlier used as hospital ship during World War I. On 5th April, that is another couple of days, but 1919, this Swadeshi ship under the company name Scindia Steam Navigation sailed with 1,000 tons of coal, 500 tons of pig iron, and hosts of celebrity passengers to Europe. Incidentally, this India steam navigation did not had any stake of Maharajas India in it. The day today is being celebrated as National Maritime Day. The reason is just not limited to mark this anniversary, but also to acknowledge the contribution of Mr. Hirachand into logistics industry as a whole. He formed INSA and chaired the body for 18 consecutive years. He developed Scindia Shipyard in 1940, which is today known as Hindustan Shipyard. Still is the largest shipbuilding facility capable of about 100,000 ton deadweight capacity ship. Today's HSL was also developed by Mr. Walchand Hirachand. He also set up the car manufacturing company called Padmini Automobile to manufacture Fiat, which was once, the famous Padmini Premier once was the car of elite. Now, coming to today's topic, in my view, sustainability should have three elements, though the fellow speakers have covered these elements, that is environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. As we all know, over 90% of the cargo worldwide is transported through shipping route, whereas shipping is responsible for only 20% of NOx and 9% of SOx pollution in the air. And furthermore, when we talk about greenhouse emissions, it contributes only 3.1% of global emissions into the atmosphere. The regulation which are going to follow because of DCS, that is your direct data collection system, which is already in place since March 2018. It was from March 2018 to December 2018, and then followed by from January onwards of 19 and 20 and ongoing year. After this, this performance would be evaluated towards the compliance of the goals towards fuel economy and EEDI, and of course EEOI, which is to be followed by the ships towards the IMO goals. The world is heading towards the shipping world, I'll say, because not the world. We still have issues with various countries towards compliance. Just one moment. Okay. 40% of CO2 emission reduction has been targeted by 2030 and 70% by 2050. Whereas overall total emission, the target has been kept as 50% by 2050. Now, in this context, I would like to inform the August gathering that a seminar on use of natural gas on board IV vessel, which was also part of this National Maritime Week events, was held on 31st March on first ever sailing seminar at Kolkata, organized by IMEI Kolkata branch and GAIL India. Coming to economic sustainability, I think the matter is already being discussed in detail by Captain Bhargav. My submission is only to state that the prices, if not manipulated, depends upon demand and supply. When we see mid last year, it was due to crash in crude prices. There was a rush to lift oil by the refiners, which led to steep rise in the charter rate of oil tankers, and then now it has crashed. Similarly, dry bulk earnings, it was well covered by Captain Bhargava, so I am not going to in further details. Same thing with box trade. Box trade is the future, so it is going to, on a sustainable basis, it is definitely going to go up in future. Coming to the points which can be derived through economic sustainability, that is many companies they have deferred their repairs during the COVID, so there would be a shortage of dry docking space when the thing starts opening up. In fact, now there are no more extension being given by the flag administrations. So as such, there is a rush for dry docking space. So the costing towards dry docking is going to increase, and it is increasing at the moment. Because of this massive fluctuations in the charter rates going up and going down steeply, there are going to be more sale and purchase deals for older vessels. The box trade, as I said, is going to increase further. That is my opinion on this. The ship management practices have changed. Earlier, before COVID days, the superintendent used to fly across the globe for various maintenance related activities, even for dry docking. Today, the shipping companies are managing most of the dry docking activities only through the crew. Therefore, the responsibility of the crew of late has increased drastically. And coming to the bunker cost, despite there was a steep rise in bunker prices with implementation of IMO 2020, however, the forecast says that it is going to remain stable till 2023. Social sustainability, shipping is the lifeline to global community. Had there been no shipping, half of the world would have been frozen and half of the world would have starved. So the industry has to remain prepared for travel restrictions, which will keep on coming like this, that we had initial COVID, then we had second wave in many countries, and now even including India, we are going through the third wave of COVID, which probably will continue for time to come. How long we can't predict. The crew on board is likely to have tough life on board, because there would be restrictions with respect to shore passes. Shore leave is going to be difficult. The crew change is, as such, it is difficult, though I must acknowledge the efforts of DG Shipping during the peak of the COVID, the efforts which were made by DG Shipping to arrange the crew changes for the stranded seafarers on board. And there were a lot of seafarers who didn't get the employment because of this non-availability of crew change facilities. They also got employed during the process. The international and national requirements prior boarding and disembarking, as Captain Anuj Sahai has explained, how they had to go through the various processes of, the crew coming from various places, and then had to go through the local requirements at the place of salvage operation. So these things will continue to happen. There would be quarantine requirement, there would be self-isolation requirements, and we have to deal with COVID as it comes through. So I would like to quickly conclude through the statement. While some of the new normal changes are temporary in nature and will go with time, however, many of the innovative ideas emerged during this crisis are there to stay. For example, carrying out dry docking without the superintendent being there with the ship. With this, I thank you all for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattagar. A great presentation on highlighting the three key factors for sustainability: environmental, economic, social. Of course, very rightly pointed out that shipping has a very, very low contribution to disturb the environment. But still, people are out ready to blame it on the ships and the mariners. Yes, deferment in the shipping-related industries are very much highlighted, but slow and steady would always win the race, and we better be safe now than to jump into work. It is building up. Yes, third wave has to go, but shipping would never stop, and that has been seen pre-COVID, post-COVID, or during COVID. Shipping has been moving, and it's because of the brave hearts of the seafarers that have kept the ships moving, even with all the difficulties that you highlighted, the crew change, with the efforts of the administration to ease upon the difficulties the crew globally are suffering. There has been a big contribution from FOSMA and MASA too in assisting the crew change globally. And we appreciate that we have this industry stalwarts that look into the need of the crew at any given time. Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya, once again for your presentations. And we now would bring a seafarer among us who will highlight upon where we left behind, sir, on the difficulties of the seafarers in COVID times, the social sustainability. So our next speaker, Captain Ashok Menon, will dwell on the seafarer's perspective for beyond COVID-19. Captain Menon is also 77-78 batch of training ship Rajendra. I'll take a few seconds for you gentlemen and the ladies. That it happens to be a good platform for the TS Rajendra batch of 77-78 here. There are four of us today in this forum. Captain Bhargav, Captain Sahai, Captain Ashok Menon, and myself. We appreciate all present here to give us a chance to be part of this National Maritime Day celebration. Thank you all. Captain Menon joined the Shipping Corporation of India and got command in the year 1990 with SR Shipping. He's also sailed with various companies like the Wilhelmsen, Bernard Schultz, and has been involved in maritime training off and on since 1998 when he joined the Institute of Port Management in collaboration with FOSMA. Presently, he is the nautical faculty of FOSMA Maritime Institute in Kolkata. He's an author himself. He's been authoring several books on shipping and non-shipping related topics. I bring upon now Captain Ashok Menon to present the seafarer's perspective beyond COVID-19. Welcome, Captain Menon.
Thank you, Captain Ragman. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay, I take this opportunity to thank the National Maritime Day Celebration Committee for this invitation to address this August gathering. Although it's a virtual platform, but nevertheless, a good opportunity to share our thoughts. And my topic today is on the seafarer's perspective, as you already know, because very often in the rush to the economic, to keep the economy churning, we forget the people who are behind, that is the seafarers. Most of us in this webinar have been seafarers. So let me share my presentation. And can you all see the presentation now?
Yes, Captain Menon.
Is it visible?
Yes, yeah, it is visible.
Yeah. So the National Day Celebration Committee, Sustainable Shipping and COVID-19, Seafarers Perspective. Sustainable shipping, as said by Captain Mr. Bhatnagar, rests on three pillars: economic, social, and environmental. The environmental aspect has been taken care of by so many conventions like SOLAS and MARPOL, etc. The economic has been taken care of by the commercial geniuses like Captain Rahul Bhargav and so on. But what about the social aspect? Very often we miss out on the social aspect, considering that seafarers have to be on board, they have to give their best, they have to do multitasking, looking after the ship, at the same time looking after their families. So this is the aspect that I would like to dwell upon in my brief talk. The human angle. Sustainability of The shipping depends no doubt on the human angle. That is, provide healthy, safe and secure environments so that seafarers can enjoy rewarding careers while the world economy rides on them and makes a good global progress towards a better life for all. We all know that shipping constitutes the majority of the transport and trade across the world. So if shipping halts, everything halts. We will not get things that we take for granted. Very often companies go for profitability. Does spending time, effort and finances for the betterment of the workforce in an organization lead to a decrease in profitability? You'll be surprised to know that some of the most profitable companies across the world, I can name three: McKinsey, Google and Microsoft. They're the best companies to work for because they give maximum, they return the maximum profits, they keep their workforce happy, and well, everybody is eager to work for them. So not only are there people eager to work, they are efficient, they are effective, and automatically profits go up. So fact that profits go down is further from the truth. Nothing is further from the truth. Workforce should be happy because, as said over and over again, a happy ship is an efficient ship. The ship where the master, the chief engineer and the top officers mingle with the crew, participate in their work, gives them the proper training required, at the same time make them work hard, is a happy ship indeed. So this is it: people, planet, the 3 P's of sustainability: people, planet and profit. Keep the planet safe, keep the people happy, ensure the commercial aspect is taken care of, and that is what sustainability is all about. Because if there is no organization, there can be no sustainability. If there is no planet, everything falls. And if the people are unhappy, then we can guarantee you that the organization would go downhill very soon. Now, the global supply of seafarers available for service on ships trading internationally is estimated at 1.7 million. This figure often goes up and down depending on which aspect you take, and women seafarers have been estimated to represent 1% of this total. I remember giving a similar talk 10 years back where the women seafarers were only 0.5% or less, and number of Indians as seafarers, women seafarers, were even lesser. So it's a good way to go. That gender equality is what we are all talking about, and this is what is the fact. 3 largest seafaring supplying countries: Philippines, Indonesia and China. No doubt India was at some time or the other in the top 3, but we have fallen back because statistics say that as a country improves its economy, people want to go out to sea less and less because there are too many problems. There are storms and there is not being able to come home, and now this COVID. So the charm of shipping is reducing somehow or the other. So these are the countries: Philippines, Indonesia, China, Russia, Turkey, and then India. So India is 6th. USA, Japan, Korea, Canada, Malaysia, and so on and so forth. We can give all the data that's required. But as of now, this is the thing. As you know, in India, the supply of officers are more than ratings, while in Philippines and Indonesia, the supply of ratings are more. Let us come on the effect of pandemic on the seafarers. It's no joke. We sitting on our cushy homes, going to air-conditioned offices and working, of course, now sitting at home and working online. We are not aware that the seafarers out there at sea this very moment is facing all the pandemic, the effect of the pandemic, comes to port, meets people, loads, goes out, and then there is so much of turnover to be done. And now, even as Captain Sahai said, even in dry dock, there is less number of people, so he has to do everything. So let's spare a thought for the seafarer. The travels, bans and restrictions have seriously affected the seafarer. Crew change became an extremely difficult, if not an impossible operation. We all know so many cases where people were stuck on board for 6 months, 9 months, 11 months, 13 months, 15 months. I know of a case where a guy was on board and his family was in trouble, he was not being relieved, and still they kept the wheels churning because that is what the trade depends on. 4,000 seafarers were stranded on vessels in the peak in August, and similar number were prevented from returning to ships. This caused a huge effect in the health of the seafarer. You know, the turnaround of seafarers is almost 100,000 a month. So in a month across the world, 100,000 people are being transported. And if that slows down, everybody suffers. In spite of all the difficulties, seafarers continue to do their job and move ships and their cargoes without any hiccups to keep the wheels of the world economy moving. No ship stopped. Yes, a couple of ships are diverted here and there, but at the end of the day, all ships reached their cargo, all people joined the ships, everybody did their work, and everything was all right with the world economy. IMO General Secretary says in these difficult times, the ability for shipping services and seafarers to deliver vital goods, including medical supplies and foodstuffs, will be central to responding to and eventually overcoming this pandemic. He said this a few months back. Things improved, but unfortunately, gentlemen, things are becoming worse now. If you're not careful, we will be surpassing the first wave also. So we need to be careful at all times. The UNCTAD director, Shamika Sirimane, these unsung heroes who put food on a table are the seafarers. They have been making huge personal sacrifices throughout the pandemic. Large numbers of seafarers were stuck in ship for many months and they were unable to sign off in time. This unable to sign off in time has a huge connotation because the family needs them. There are medical issues. They may need to go to the doctor. So in spite of all that, they stuck on board and kept the ships moving. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, called the seafarers as collateral victims of COVID-19 related measures imposed by governments. Governments were quick to stop everything. Lockdown, stop. Did anybody spare a thought for keeping how the ships are to be moving? How the seafarers are to be taken off and on? That is what we require to do now. For those who have been at sea for months, longer than their contract stipulates, there's a growing risk to their mental and physical well-being. Worry about family, social isolation, own health issues, medicines, doctor visits, etc. Mental health is a very serious aspect of overall health. Unfortunately, people do not pay much attention to that. And that is why we have the Association of Master Miners Kolkata who are giving free mental counseling. Anybody can contact us for that, because with the COVID-19, a lot of people are having mental stress and trauma. They need to be counseled. If not, they may go for a nervous breakdown. Again, the IMO Secretary General says, I urge a practical and pragmatic approach to crew changeovers and resupply. Seafarers are on the front line of the global calamity. They have taken measures. Some say too less, some say too much. But whatever it is, IMO, our own DG Shipping, are doing their best to address the distress faced by the seafarers. They are either unable to board ships or are trapped to extend their contract beyond the original contract, leading to stress and fatigue. This is the problem. At the end of the contract, seafarers are fatigued physically, mentally, and not fit to safely perform their duties. You have a chief officer who has to go. He has to plan the cargo. He has to go on deck to ensure the cargo work is going on. He has to do his watch keeping. What if he is mentally fatigued? Physical fatigue, you can sleep and take it off. But mentally fatigued, no. So his ability to make decisions go down, and then you may have accidents. And repatriation and replacement on time is the only responsible course of action. This is what we have to keep in mind. Abandoned at sea in the midst of a pandemic. This is what is a sad story. Right, it started from May, June, July, August, September, October, November. December, things started improving. Now that things are improving, again, things are taking a backseat. The latest benchmark Seafarers Happiness Index from Mission to Seafarers sounds a dark note as the COVID-19 pandemic and the crew change crisis drag on. Again, companies are on the back foot. According to them, many respondents say that they do not feel appreciated or understood, and they're losing faith in the system designed to protect their well-being. Somehow we are not able to convince them that we are doing the best. Are we doing the best? That is what we need to take. Just as life was limping back to normal, all organizations were scrambling to bring the situation under control, came the news of new variants and an upsurge in the number of people affected. The second wave has arrived, gentlemen, and if you are not careful, we may once again be back where we started, back in the dark months of April, May, June, etc. These are the case in India. Unfortunately, as we speak, the number has risen to 80,000 and more. And internationally, the number has risen to almost 8 lakhs. So things are becoming very severe. Unfortunately, we, the common people, are not aware of it, and we are doing whatever we feel like. And that is why the COVID does not forget, it does not forgive. Daily new cases worldwide, you can see that is already coming up. And as we speak, this was a March 17 figure, it has already touched 8 lakhs. This is a worldwide figure of COVID cases. Number of seafarers being impacted by the crew change crisis are again on the rise due to travel restrictions. And EU countries have immediately had COVID restrictions. And once again, we hear that people are not being able to be signed off in time. 200,000 seafarers are currently affected by the crew change crisis. Earlier it was 400,000. It has halved, but still 200,000 seafarers stuck on board is 200,000 too many, when all that they need is to do a decent work, earn their salary and come home. Good news, They are overcoming the fear of the pandemic. Most seafarers spend long months on board, finally manage to return home. And they have the ability, the willpower, the mental stress, the strength to join back. Many of them join back. I personally know people who had to join back in a hurry, within just giving 1 day notice to their family because the ship needs them. That is the will and the power of the seafarer. IMO's initiative, only 55 countries and 2 associate members of the IMO have declared seafarers key workers. And more work must be done to ensure crew does not once again become collateral damage in the pandemic. India gives seafarer status thanks to the DG Shipping quick action taken to exempt these professionals from specific COVID-related travel restrictions. That's all they ask. Seafarers do not need any extra money for going on board. They need that when they are signed off, they are allowed to come back on time, allowing them to travel between their country of residence and ships and to be repatriated at the end of the contract. Nothing much to ask. Is that too much to ask? Perhaps not. But unfortunately, when countries have a COVID travel restrictions, everybody has to follow. In a landmark ruling in December, the ILO found that governments have failed to protect seafarers' rights as set out in the international law under the MLC. UN agency called on states to recognize seafarers as key workers without delay, even if there is a COVID, even if there's a lockdown. What prevents from having a chartered flight? Yes, finances, definitely. As was done in the month of August, they have clubbed together, people flew to Dubai, from there they went to various places. These sort of arrangements must be made permanent now. We have to look ahead and think what can happen if the numbers increase. With the second wave catching up fast, there is a fear that it may be worse than the first one. Whatever the case, we have to be careful to ensure the seafarers do not suffer and receive humanitarian treatment from administrations all over the world. First wave, they suffered. Let them not suffer now. Now let us see the way forward. There are many issues to be tackled to ensure that a repeat of the earlier fiasco, which left many seafarers traumatized and stuck on board for many months without any relief, does not occur. Gentlemen, what I am saying is totally my personal opinion. I know many companies may say it is impractical because of the involved. These are my personal bits. I've been talking to seafarers, etc. Few immediate actions that are required to ensure sustainable shipping. IMO must make it mandatory for all member states to declare seafarers as key workers. When we have so many conventions which are mandatory, why not have this mandatory? Why wait and beg people, please do? They can say mandatory. If the state which do not have seafarers as key workers will not be allowed in port. Port state control will stop them. That's it. Everybody will do it. And having done that, make travel restrictions, provided you have a negative COVID test. Why not? Declaring key workers is not enough. It should be implemented. ILO, IMO, and ICO urge governments to act on crew change immediately and with full effect. Seafarers should be given priority in vaccinations and should be enabled to complete their vaccinations before joining the vessel. This will ensure that the chance of their contracting the virus is largely reduced. No doubt vaccinations do not give 100% efficiency, but even if it is 75%, provided I take all the other precautions, I'm sure seafarers will not be suffering with COVID and will be able to face the future with confidence. Administration must be informed to ensure safe passage without any restrictions for those seafarers who hold a negative test report. If a seafarer does have a negative test report, there's no point in refusing entry. I don't understand this. I'm negative. It will take 1 week for the COVID to set in and for me to transmit it. Then why are you stopping me? Give a negative and let go. This is what administration must do. Provide an oxygen generator in every ship. Today we know that if you go on Amazon, 65,000, 70,000 rupees, you get a good quality oxygen generator. Why can't it be provided on every ship? $1,000, nothing much. But it may well save repatriation, hospitalization costs, save lives, which are giving necessary confidence to the seafarer and save lives. So this could be made mandatory equipment like your PPE. Obviously, you need a pulse oximeter on board. Otherwise, there's no point in having an oxygen generator. Oxygen levels of seafarers to be tested regularly, and anyone with a less than normal oxygen should be put on the oxygen generator. This is the requirement, so people know, yes, if my oxygen level is less, I can have my oxygen. And within 1 week, the body picks up and you're back to normal. So there's no need to panic. Provide COVID medication kits on board with a view to starting treatment on board under the guidance of the radiomedical advice as soon as the case occurs. Why not? I would urge people in this forum who are there, who make matters, who can move matters, to put these things into action, at least in Indian companies, if not abroad. These measures will ensure that even if a case occurs on board, it is dealt with efficiently and effectively before it spreads. Provide rapid antigen testing kits on board. This will ensure that testing is carried out as soon as the symptoms appear. A seafarer reports sick with fever, put him on antigen. He comes negative, check his oxygen, put him on oxygen generator. Start the medication. Life is saved. Ship need not stop. That is what it means. If found positive, treatment can be started without delay. Administration must provide a green channel for seafarers in airport. Why not? Even without the COVID, I find that a seafarer who spent 9 months on board is coming back and he is being harassed. His passport is being impounded for various things. I'll not go into that. It was there that many misappropriations occurred. Provide a green channel. We know that he is not an illegal entry. He is a seafarer coming back home or going to ship. Provide a green channel. If the seafarer is to be relieved, the transportation will not come in the way and hassle-free crew change can take place. Lastly, shipping companies must ensure that seafarers are relieved within the contract period. The onus should be on the shipping companies. This should be enforced and companies should be made accountable for failure and to relieve the seafarers on time. There must be an audit, seafarer audit. Okay, this guy wants, why is he not being, there is no, they said no, transport is not there. Prove to us, transport is not there. What effort have you made? These measures, we have Mr. Bhatnagar here, we have Sonali from IRS. You can implement these on board because on board you can go and train the master, train the companies. You're visiting so many companies to do these sort of things. Have minimum number of people coming on board. Contactless port safety will go a long way in reducing cases. Port officials must cooperate with the master in this aspect, and master, as he has overriding authority in ISM, he should have in this also. Last but not the least, training. People must be given in training, COVID protocol. Wear a mask, save life. Wear a face cover. Wash your hands. Keep a safe distance. If you go on the road, even today, we find that people are just roaming around. Even on the ship, we have seen photographs. People are roaming around. Why? They have not been trained in what happens if they get COVID. Sustainable shipping for a sustainable planet. If we do not look after our seafarers, there will be no sustainability, and that is the most important aspect of this. Thankfully, acknowledge the following, from where I have, of course, many others, but these gave me a real hindsight on how to prepare this presentation and talk about it. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, and wish all of you a very happy National Maritime Day. And I hope everything will be all right with the world and we will be on our toes very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you very much. You gave us the key for being a happy worker to make the ship happy. Of course, the three elements of peace to sustainability, well highlighted. And yes, the global acceptance that the seafarers are the key workers must come soon. Well, you looked into almost 9 good points on the way forward and trust that it will be looked upon by all around the globe because this pandemic would go. We are confident the seafarers are going before, during, and would continue after. So to keep them going, keep them working as hard as being expected from them. They should remain healthy in the body as well as mind. So your presentation is well appreciated, Captain Menon, because the seafarers are the crux of today's shipping sustainability, and you have done justice to this topic. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have great presentations from 6 learned speakers who have been from different areas of shipping, from being chief operating officer to senior principal surveyors, to senior surveyors, to nautical faculty, startups, Captain Krishnamurti, Trimsail, Digital Solutions. We have come to an end of their presentations, but now's the time. Now's the time to answer the questions sticking in your mind. So we enter now the question and answer session, and we would request the August gathering to raise the questions in the chat, address it to the speaker that you would like to be answered. We begin the question and answer session now, and the floor is open for you in the audience to raise the questions. Mr. Captain Karat, please could you put your question in the chat? You're muted. Captain Kanak, you are muted. Yeah.
Captain Dagman?
Yes, please.
If you can hear me properly, then I would like to ask something to my dear friend Sonali. Is she around?
Oh, yes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shaukat.
Hi, Sonali. Good afternoon.
Hi.
First of
Very
all,
good afternoon.
lovely speech, and as usual. I would like it's more of a sort of a comment than a question, but yeah, I would want to direct this to you. So you've been a great motivator for women in shipping. So around a few years back, the data of international women in international shipping was less than 1%, less than 2%, and in India it was less than 1%. But due to people like you and flag bearers of women in shipping, the numbers are increasing. I personally know that there are lots and lots of new women joining the institute. So this is a positive scenario happening. So do you think, why do you think this has happened? I mean, this is initiative definitely for the government has been very, very lucrative for women. So what can the industry do to invite more women at the ground level? What can the industry do to invite more women out at sea?
Very aptly stated, Captain Shaukat. Actually, if you look at the trends, then we see like companies like Shipping Corporation of India, who have been part of it, who are a PSU, they are the ones who have come forward and encouraged more women to join on board. Of course, I have never sailed with the Shipping Corporation of India. I was always with the private managers and operators. But we see that a lot of encouragement is definitely happening from the side of the government and the PSUs. They are definitely encouraging. But if we were to apply this to the private sector, then I don't think the scenario is as encouraging as it may seem in the PSU, that is the Shipping Corporation of India. So, I mean, somewhere I feel the policies are such that, the business and the welfare do not go hand in hand. And that is exactly where I want to say that when you devise policies and when you sit across the table to discuss issues, it is very important that we bring forward the core issues and address them rather than pretending that big terminologies and jargons like sensitized and diverse and all that. We need to have mechanism in place how we are going to achieve what we are trying to achieve. Unless we have a concrete plan in hand, an implementation plan, I would say, then it may be difficult to achieve that in the private sector, because I understand that managers still get a lot of oppositions when they have to propose a girl seafarer's name to the owners, and it doesn't go down very easily for various issues that I have already mentioned and discussed here. But beyond that, if the industry feels that there are some other concerns which need to be addressed, then it's high time that we need to sit across and address those issues rather than pretending that all is hunky-dory. It is very important to have a gender diverse, because other nations are already way ahead in this. They have already been there, they are achieved, and I think, so would the Indian women are not far away from this. They should be given that opportunity. But the only thing is that we need to address the issues as they are, and rather than just pretend that, all is okay.
Thank you, Sonali. Very well answered. And yes, you are very much right. I've had the experience of dealing with international clients where clients have actually called up Indian companies and said, why aren't you proposing enough women? So yes, and thank you very much for the answer. Yes.
Yeah, because if we look at that Scandinavian countries and other European countries, they have already had women, since long before, women captains, engineers. So, why can't we have it here in India? Definitely, there is something else that needs to be looked after. If the ships are safe and they are operating with all the SOPs in place, then why can't you employ a woman on board? It's no more just about how much weight she can lift or how much push and pull that she can give. It's more about a mindset that we need to work on, and then if some other issues needs to be addressed, then we need to bring it on the table and then discuss and address it. We definitely need to have a plan before we think that we have already arrived. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Captain Kanak wants to ask some questions.
Go ahead, Captain Kanak.
You are muted, sir. We cannot hear you.
Not audible, Captain Kanak. None of us can hear you, I think.
Probably you need to increase the volume of your machine.
Kanak, you can send your query on chat.
Okay, let's see what's in the chat. My post is about to Shri Rao.
Sir, I think earlier he had posted quite a few questions.
Exactly the same questions need to be answered, actually. These are the questions haunting us from long. Because after the Anuj Sahai spoke, Kanak has posted some questions, which is really haunting us because I am also in a niche sector and it's very difficult for us to get the validated our certificates. And that way it's a very, forget other aspect. The main thing is we old seafarers cannot continue as seafarers if these rules are in place. We had to really dodge DG shipping and MMD to get our certificate validated, to get the sea time, because that's what he's saying. Like Anuj Sahai, he cannot get his certificate validated because he is not a seafarer as per the terms of DG shipping. He might be CEO of the company, but he cannot command the ship because he might be living on the ships. So certain criteria, like mainly is we need to have our what do you call agency who need to fill in your data to get it. So that letter basically discourages us to suggest anyone to get their Indian COC. It's better to, if they can afford, go to UK and get their certificate, because it's much easier to do in Australia and UK than to India. That's basically the theme of what Kanak wants to ask.
I think it has been there since the time we joined in 1977. It has always been an impression that getting certificates or COCs in India is extremely difficult, and revalidation has been more difficult. So and this is stemming, I think, from not from shipping side of MMD and DGS. Probably it is coming up from the we have these IAS and all those people like who are still probably living
from
in the
ministry side. From the ministry side.
Yeah.
Sir, can I come in with the permission of PO, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. I thought I will comment it. Anyhow, please go ahead.
I was just going through the questions, and rather than getting into a debate, what I simply let me just go through the questions. First is, why is the Indian COC the most difficult to revalidate, especially for people who work in niche segments like salvage? Right. So yes, of course, the DG shipping has certain rules in place where the revalidation criteria are fixed. I know people who have actually, diversified into niche segments would want to get their COC revalidated. But please let us remember one thing. Let us, just compare it with the aviation sector or any other sector, even the medical profession. The certificate of competency basically certifies you to run the ship or navigate the ship, right? So that is why the first and most important criteria is the sea time. You wouldn't want to fly on a plane where the pilot has probably, though he may have been linked with the aviation sector in the financials or whatever, who's not flown a plane in 10 years. So probably that is the thought process where you do not cease to be a seafarer just because you have shifted to a niche segment. So probably I am not talking on behalf of DG Shipping, but the certain criteria that are given so that, we don't have an incident or, we egg on our face when suddenly some incident happens and people realize that, oh, this guy has not even commanded a vessel or something for the last 10 years. So then it becomes a bit difficult to answer. So some criteria, of course, are given, and certain relaxations are also given. So some places you will have difficulty, but then as if you are already in some of these highly exclusive niche segments, I don't think there is no point in revalidating the COC also, because you've done much better. Actually, you've gone into something much more better, and that revalidated COC would only be like a sort of a medal or a certificate.
No, I think you got it quite a bit wrong.
Okay. No, I don't want to get into a
debate. I'm not talking about the CEO, MD Anuj Sahai. Because as he showed in a presentation, there were a lot of boats involved. Right? Those boats captain, they cannot revalidate as per Indian laws. Understood that?
I don't. I'm talking
because
on the
if they don't have an agent in India, if they don't have an agent in India, they can work in India. Why he could not hire an Indian boat? Because
Captain Mishra, may I intervene?
Yes, go ahead.
I feel that this is not the forum to discuss the issue of COCs. We are in a seminar.
Because I'm just
okay. It is interesting. We have taken a note of your we have taken a note of your question. Well, I would advise you to put it in the mail to the person who you are addressing to, and I think that would be far better to be answered directly to you than using this forum, because this forum is on the seminar on what is beyond COVID-19 for the shipping sustainability. Yes,
so how can you sustain if you cannot revalidate?
Captain Dagman, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, please, Captain.
Captain Mishra, can you please send us an email to us? We will look into that case. Whatever you are saying, that we will take it a note and then we will look into that case. Please send us an email to us.
That's exactly what I said. Please do that, Captain Mishra. Sooner the better. We will now request the House if any other questions for the day theme. Do we have any questions?
Captain Dagman, may I come in?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm Captain Mazumdar, and I had posed a little into the chat box regarding that thing about seafarers. Why can't they be also on a priority vaccination? Because if they are going to be essential workers, they ought to be vaccinated on a priority. And second thing is that their families also should get some sort of a priority, because the seafarer, when he's on board, he's away from the family for a long period of time. Maybe the long period might be even 3 weeks or maybe a few months. But during that time, he would have a peace of mind, especially if the contracts extend beyond and beyond, to have that the family is kind of safe. It is, we know that even vaccination will not protect the family totally, but maybe they may not get death as the this thing. They may be ill. They may be ill for lesser period of time, but that's it. So I mean, I just thought perhaps that also could be something where our administration could look into it.
Yeah, this camera here from Mercantile Marine Department. Yes, I agree that five UN bodies have recommended to all the maritime administrations for the COVID vaccine for all the seafarers. I hope Government of India will look into that, and we are also pursuing from our end. We have raised these queries to our air authorities. I think we'll get it some reply shortly.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. And also, as I mentioned, the thing about the family part, because the seafarer is a householder who many times is away from home for such long periods of time. Even that, because these days of the quick communication, he can get to know that the family, somebody is sick, somebody is very sick, but he cannot come away in time because of the restrictions, because of the requirements that he has to have a replacement, and so on and so forth.
Okay, sir. Well noted, and we'll put forward your views to our directorate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions from the House? Gentlemen, I think the ladies, we request that if you do have some questions coming up, and you are most welcome to address it in our email so that we could take it up even after the function is over. Please do not hesitate to write to us. What I would prefer now, with the permission of the chair, to call up Mr. Aniruddha Chaki, Indian and Ship Surveyor, to present the vote of thanks for the gathering.
Please go ahead. Please go.
Mr. Chaki, could you please do the honor of the vote of thanks?
Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon to everyone who participated in this webinar. On behalf of the National Maritime Day Celebration Committee, Kolkata chapter, chaired by Shri K.M. Rao, Principal Officer, MMD, Kolkata, I would like to thank all of you who have taken time out of your busy schedules to come and attend, to join us for this webinar on sustainable shipping beyond COVID-19. As we all know, last year's celebrations had to be abruptly cancelled because of the imposition of the national lockdown. This year, like you sir said, we had grand plans, but again, due to the rising cases, we made a small low-key beginning for this. And I was going through the entire webinar, and I must say that in quality, content, and presentation, Kolkata does a great job every time. Over the years, our content presentation is at par with any other webinar conducted in the maritime domain in India. Now, this webinar cannot be concluded without thanking all those who made it possible, putting in hard work over the last few weeks. Especially, I would like to thank our speakers, Captain Rahul Bhargav, CEO of SR Shipping, Mrs. Sonali Banerjee, Senior Surveyor, IRS, who also is a classmate of mine from DMET, Captain S. Krishnamurthy, CEO of Trimcell Digital Solutions, Captain Anuj Sahai, Managing Director, TT Salvage Asia from Singapore, Mr. Amit Bhatnagar, Senior Principal Surveyor, IRS, and a part of the core team that organized this event, Captain Ashok Menon, one of our senior most master mariners from Calcutta and a very active participant in NMDC celebrations in Calcutta. And I would like to thank the core team that made this event possible, led by our Principal Officer, Shri Kili Mohan Rao, the Secretary of NMDC Kolkata, Mr. Ilango, Captain Minocha for organizing this webinar in such a fantastic manner, Captain Dagman for being the host, being the moderator for this very well organized seminar. Mr. Amit Bhatnagar, Mr. Vijendra Chaube, Mr. Arvind Chaudhary, Captain Mandal, Captain Sarvanan, and all under whose able guidance this webinar could be done successfully. I'm sorry if I have missed out anyone, thanking anyone. Now I'd like to hand over back to our host, Captain Minocha, to conclude the session. Thank you very much.
Captain Dagman, sorry that our surveyor, Mr. Arvind Chaudhary, would like to have 1 minute chat. Others, just let him allow.
Please, sir. Pleasure.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chaudhary. Please go ahead.
I must be very thankful to my chairman, Principal Officer Mr. Rao, Captain Manocha, and all the speakers, and Captain Ali, Captain Dagman, to you also, nicely conducted and organizing the show. And I want to just add few lines that a few of the comments which I can see in the chat box is giving me a little goosebump in my stomach. So it's my humble request to the person who has put all the remarks that please send us a detailed email with all the evidences, whatever the difficulty actually has faced, not based on the hearsay, aisa hota hai, vaisa hota hai, because what I do believe, since past couple of years, the administration has worked 24/7, particularly at the time of the lockdown, where this particular department was open 24/7. I believe the local stakeholder must be very much aware of this fact. But when we see the comments, kind of think that MMD or DGS is a kind of roadblock. So, okay, the best of the idea inventions comes for the discussion only. There we are always open to for the criticism, and we do accept it very gracefully, and we try to improve. No system or organization can be fault free. We do admit it, and we are ready to open whatever the the amendment we can do to our practices. But the thing is that terming us a roadblock as giving me a little sleepless night. So my humble request to Captain Salil Misra to send us a detailed email. There are forums like grievance cell, there are email IDs which is well circulated, to send us the email, whatever the grievance or whatever the difficulty he has actually faced while revalidating his COC or any business matter. And with the proofs, not like the hearsay, aisa hota hai, waisa hota hai. We will definitely look into it. And thank you very much for all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you for addressing the concerns of the seafarers. We have come to a good end, to a very good program, and therefore we shall end it with our national anthem. I would request our host, Captain Espinocha, Principal FOSMA, to play the national anthem for the audience.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you all. Thank you very much. I appreciate that you are going without lunch. But on better times, we'll make it a double ritualing for all of us that were here today. Thank you once again. With the permission of the chair, we will dismiss the program, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for
you very much
conducting
for
the
the
seminar from your end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.